That's right, I always... Sometimes I'm scared about opening Twitter on stream, and then I remember that that I have a bookmark. I have a bookmark to my own page, so I don't have anything to worry about.
Wake up.
Okay, that's all good.
Wake up. We're here. Why are you shaking? Are you okay? Wake up. Stand up. There you go. You were dreaming. What's your name?
If you're doing... Hold on. I'm gonna hit record because my streams tend to cut out because my internet isn't the best. If you're going to do a magic build, then you want to probably be a high elf. I've done maybe probably a dozen magic builds, like literally over 10 at this point, in the past year. And there was like exactly one occasion where I kind of wished that I was a Breton and that I was a Breton, where I self-restricted to not ever raise endurance, and I also self-restricted to not use absorb health on principle. So because of that, I had to worry about reflection the whole game. There was never a point where I had enough health to just shrug it off or to use absorb health to statistically get back more health than you lose anyways. And that was one time where I was bad as a Breton. I slapped on the Curse of the Savior's Hide and used damage health instead. But I mean, that's 2 levels of self-imposed restrictions. You know? Bretons aren't that good. But they resist magic, bro. People play Oblivion and they think that resisting magic is like the most important stat in the game. And it's like it's convenient for sure. Like, it's nice that as a Breton you only need to create a 50-point resist magic spell for the Boots of Blinding Speed. Or you know, that if you use something that has like damage health, or like if you get drain health reflected, you're not auto fucked. You know, that is nice. It's convenient for sure. You can also do some like cheesy melee strats with Bretons. So if you are immune to magic, you can just chug Sujamma for strength, and you don't have any downsides from the alcohol. It's a pretty strong combo. But overall, mages, high elf is better. Watching you do while doing a midnight McDonald's run, dude, that sounds heavenly right now. It's so hot. I want a McFrappe. I always get a caramel McFrappe. Sometimes they don't put ice in it, and it's the best. It's just pure liquid. And then I have intense diarrhea afterwards. Most of the time, being a man is better. I think if you want to be a thief character, being a woman can be better on those characters, and depending on... Some women have equal endurance to their men. If that's the case, then you want to be a woman, because they tend to be faster and smarter and things like that. But generally, the split is like speed or agility for like strength and endurance. And like generally, you want those stats at the start of the game. But I always play as women, and I don't change that. So. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory. Magic, intelligence, willpower, casting schools. Illusion is definitely by far the worst casting skill of the 6 casting skills. You can make an argument that destruction is like obsolete, but not really, because Whereas, like, you don't start the game spamming absorb health. It's a little hard. Especially if you make custom spells, they're going to be way more expensive than destruction spells are. Like, making a 100-point absorb health spell is, like, I think almost twice. In vanilla, I think it's like 1.5 times as expensive as a Fire or Frost. I think it's only less expensive than, like, damage health. It's really... So you want, early on, you want to be able to cast destruction spells for damage. And, like, if you tag it, you start with Fire Bite, so you don't have to, like, go get a spell or something weird like that. And, like, leveling Destruction quickly is more useful than leveling Illusion quickly. Because all of Illusion's unique applications, like Chameleon and, what's the other one? Frenzy? You can kind of cheese those. Like, they aren't that intensive. Like, Frenzy is not hard to cast. Even if it starts at 25 because it's a minor skill. I think you have, like, 70% odds for Frenzy, 100 for 1 second. So, yeah. And then you have, like, one last skill that you have to pick because you choose all the magic schools. Normally I choose Short Blade, but it ends up being worthless by the end. Armor is a decent choice so that you have decent odds to repair your boots without having to, like, use a spell to fortify your smithing. Or your armor, sorry. But there's other choices. Athletics is a decent choice so that you move faster. That's probably what I would go with, honestly, in hindsight. Because I'm doing this build again, and you really just don't have any carry weight if you do this build the way that I did it. Acrobatics is also potentially useful, but you really want to be able to train acrobatics, so it's like, eh. Maybe Mercantile? Just for slightly better prices at the start. Your last skill is more freeform, but I figure for, like, a new player, armor would be the best pick because it helps you repair the boots of blinding speed because they're super frail. And then, yeah, if you choose unarmored alchemy and enchant, all your miscellaneous skills will be at 5 when you start, which is really useful for training. So, like, this build uses medium armor and heavy armor training so that once you have carry weight, you can just slap on adamantium armor and become invulnerable. Atronach is better 100%. Your magicka pool doesn't really matter if you... It's hard to say. You have to do so many levels of self-imposing to make alchemy not like an auto solution to Atronach. Like, even just fortify intelligence for 2 seconds is enough to make your potions, like, jacked. And if you go to Mournhold early and get fortify skill, alchemy is just, like, it just negates Atronach's downside. I guess you have to carry the potions, but it's not, I think, like, you just control how many potions you have in your inventory. You sell the excess to Creeper. There's no world where Atronach isn't better, but it's way more tedious to not be able to hit rest and get your magic back if you want. At least early on. Eventually, once you have strength and you can carry the potions, Atronach switches to just simply being better. But, for min-maxers? No, I would say the marginal difference in magicka doesn't matter. It's just that the defensive benefit of absorbing spells is OP. There's a lot of wizard duels that you can just sit there and win because you just absorb spells, like, over and over. Like, you really don't deserve to win them, but you just sit there and just absorb shit with Atronach. I actually think if I was going to rebalance it, I would actually swap the numbers for Apprentice and Atronach on the magic benefit. Atronach giving you the most magic and spell absorption is, like, too strong. It's just that, it's not that the magic management is difficult, it's that it's annoying. I feel like Atronach needs, like, an actual serious downside. In Morrowind, at least. It's fine in Oblivion, where managing your magic is more important, but disappointed I can't eat huge options at once anymore. Slowly getting unused to overeat. That's good. Sitting there and absorbing shit sounds like boring gameplay. Well, it's not like you're just sitting there and doing it, but it's like if you're having a wizard duel and you're both flinging spells, you can just out-absorb him and get more magicka back to cast more spells and win the fight. It's like defensively powerful. Because there's no difficulty modifier to adjust the magic damage you take, which I probably should have acknowledged more in this video. I acknowledge it sort of by saying that it doesn't touch magic, but it makes melee worse. But that means that like any defense against magic is like incredibly powerful because you just have 50-50 odds to just ignore all magic with spell absorption. It doesn't matter if it's a trap, if it's like destruction, if it's absorb health, you know? So.
You should run now.
I had to find a video to get greetings. The Morrowind greetings videos. I really like that line. But yeah, difficulty doesn't affect spell damage. So if you turn the max difficulty up as a mage, it just means warriors are like way more of a pain in the ass. You just get one shot until you have a certain amount of health. And that's another thing, is I've tried to hear people seriously say that, like, not being able to make a resist magic spell for the boots is a downside of being a high elf, and it's like, I don't think you realize that you have so much magicka, and you're so good at spells off the bat, that you can just sit there and do this shit, and just make 2 spells to resist it in a row. So yeah, not even this is like a downside of being a high elf, really. I like building my character sacrificing tankiness for damage if it's adequate to the game. I mean, yeah, that's pure mage, for sure, in this game. Because you can make a 100 damage spell at the start of the game, which is so fucking crazy for this game because of how enemy health variety works. Like, if you can make a spell that, like, at level 1 will kill every enemy in the overworld, pretty much. Like, outside of, like, I think certain Daedra. But you literally eat shit. Like, I think, like, this far in, I was still getting my ass beat by, like, cave rats. Yeah, like, this far in, because you're just so frail. Which is, like, that's the challenge, that's the only challenge of being a pure mage in this game, is you have to figure out some way around how frail you are. Which usually is cheese, like, being distant, using, like, target spells. Full of 4 gives you damage for being radiated on low HP. Yeah, I like that too. Oh, are you talking about Unyielding? Unyielding is one of the funnest builds ever for Fallout 4. Or, no, it's Bloodied. Bloodied is on weapons and it gives you bonus damage. Unyielding boosts your stats when you're at low health. Combining them is so fun. And there's like a power armor setting that makes you like tankier at low health, so you can just get to 20 and then be like invulnerable and OP. It's such a fun playstyle because there are some enemies that can still just straight up one-shot you from there on survival. Yep, the entire section that's dedicated to just fucking buying spells. This is, look, the thing is, I kind of want to use a mod that just puts a vendor that has every spell in the game in Balmora. Because you have to go to, like, fucking, like, 10 places to get all these fucking spells. It's so goddamn annoying. You're still limited by, like, your ability to cast, so there's no reason that you can't just have these all in one place. Kill or be killed, no time to sit still if you are gonna be number one. Yeah, I had to fucking cut ahead because my footage didn't time out like that. I didn't get attacked by the assassin until I was ready to level up. But but yeah, that's why the footage, like, she got her gloves on, or her grubby little mitts, but then later on she loses them again. Imagine developing an entire skill system and manually adding a loophole that outclasses mercantile if you know what you're doing. Are you talking about Fallout 4 or Morrowind? And Morrowind's economy is strangely balanced. It's balanced because training costs money, and you don't want to cast a Fortify Mercantile spell every time you train. It's so goddamn annoying. So, like, your training costs end up being what balances the game. That and the fact that, like, enchanting constant effect things are strangely expensive. If you don't have Fortify Mercantile, constant effects, like, you getting all your exquisite clothing and, like, a Telvanni helm, a cephalopod helm, is like 500,000. Oh, and, like, this shield, it's like 500, 600,000 gold. So, like, if you don't have Fortify Mercantile, it's strangely balanced. If you do, of course it kind of falls apart. But it's still a little balanced by training. Morrowind, of course. Never played Fallout 4 myself. You like Skyrim more than Morrowind. I'd probably recommend Fallout 4 for you. The thing is, though, I think Fortify skill is fine because you can't get it in vanilla. And if you try to get it on Blood Moon, you have to start the story and get decently far in. You have to be Friend of the Skull. Which, like, that's kind of tough for, like, an early character to do. So, like, that's fine. It's really Mournhold that's the problem, because you just get attacked by a Dark Brotherhood assassin at the start of the game. Then you can just freely transport to Mournhold and go buy the skill, or buy the Fortify skill. It really is Tribunal that fucks up the system. The skill is fine if you just leave it on Solstheim, because you have to figure out a way to get past the Paralysis Cave, and do some of the Skull missions, which are pretty tough, because Solstheim is like end game content on Vardenfell. It really is just Mournhold, which I go over in this video. I complain about it at one point. Yeah, the super fucking hyper optimized spells. Levitate, jump, slow fall. I've tried really hard to optimize the training spells to have an application, but it's hard to. Restoration, you want it to be Restore Fatigue so that you can successfully cast it longer early on. And then for Alteration, you want it to be Water Breathing, because casting Water Breathing resets your counter. So you can get away with just using that as your Water Breathing spell and delete the original. But figuring out an optimal Destruction one is kind of hard. You don't want it to be Damage Fatigue, because then you can't cast it successfully, but everything else is, like, detrimental. I think the solution is actually Drain Health, because the effective drain goes back, so you don't technically hurt yourself. That or maybe Disintegrate Armor. Mysticism. Yeah, Mysticism doesn't have anything useful for 1 second. Neither does Illusion or Conjuration. But, I'm trying to look at these. Making the spell ones, you can, like, Fortify Alteration 100 for 5 seconds. And then once you can do that, you can cast, like, your open spell, like, guaranteed. It's not too useful to make these, though. These are more for, like, weird hyper spells. Like, if you want to go fight Gaynor, but you want to beat his ass, without missing, you can make, like, a Fortify 100 skill spell for, like, 30 seconds, and you'll probably need to make, like, a Restoration spell for that. but like positively ramping yourself isn't too useful in combat. Because it's like super tedious and time consuming. It's like annoying. Resist paralysis, and then resist paralysis is surprisingly cheap. And then I actually do end up using the lock spell, which is hilarious. And then frenzy is it's faster than taunting, and you can use it whenever people have forced goodbyes in their dialogue. Like a lot of the more taunt contracts, they'll just like straight up refuse to talk to you. So you have to frenzy them if you don't want to deal with the bounties and everything. And then in vanilla, you only want fire and frost. Shock is way too expensive, and poison is like worthless. Damage health is incredibly expensive, and you're an altmer, so reflected absorb health like melts you. If you're playing with open MW's reflex settings, but that's not vanilla behavior. In vanilla, you want to grab the default absorb health spell and use that from Sage's Mora. That's why you make training spells, by the way. This isn't like Daggerfall. This video, the title, at least, I stole from Ragnarok. I say stole, but it's a generic question, so. Yeah, I looked it up so I could copy the thing. But, like, something he does in his magic video, if I can get it without ads. Ah, fuck. Huh?
So during my last video, I said a bit of a...
Where does he go over it? Is it here?
The normal way there for when you don't know the password. I'm actually glad that I did this because it sheds a very important death, so I won't be using it myself today. It's a useful spell effect, mind, but it's very expensive, and I think it would be better to use that magicka to kill... Chalador's Mirror, anybody?
This is it. He literally makes a training spell and like goes to a bedroom.
If it gets cheap enough, I might even use some spell reflection later on.
And you just start spamming the spell to train it. Like, I don't do this. This shit's stupid. Respect to him, he's showing off magic in Daggerfall, so it's like for a video. But you're not... The training spells aren't there so that you can literally go to a corner of a room and spam them. It's because you have to fucking walk everywhere in Morrowind, and it takes forever. Like, it takes like 30 seconds usually to get from place to place via fast travel, so like, why not cast spells while you're walking around? That's more the logic of it. Like, this won't get you to 100, but it'll get you pretty high. Like, if you just need a spell higher, then just train it while you walk around. Because, like, you have to walk around. There's just a ton of Morrowind that's just a straight line that just takes forever. Especially if you play without the Boots of Blinding Speed. If you played without the Boots of Blinding Speed, you could probably max out your magical skills doing this. Fucking fly! God, flight is so cool. I'm so angry they took it out. Gentleman Jim Stacy in shambles. I love that teleportation has combat application like that. That's so cool. You can. That's what also makes investing into it so worthwhile. Is
Requests prior.
Is you can fail it. Let me find this. This is. I actually know the specific instance of where it is.
And if over how. Appreciate. So instead of having to, the regression advised Braun to skirt attack you for doing so.
You will suffer greatly.
It's one of my favorite fucking parts of this video. It's what makes it so worthwhile. Oh, but like the fact that I was able to pull that off. Granted, okay, so I used a recall amulet there, because it's faster. But you can do that with the spell cans. Once you can successfully cast spells. I mean, I did it earlier in the video. That's a goof on this video, is I didn't specify to go get the recall amulet because it's not necessary. I could have done that with the spellcast, but honestly, you don't really want to use enchanted items if you have all 6 casting skills tagged, because like then you're losing cast experience, right? Which is kind of super meta. So like you gain enchant experience by using an enchanted item, but it's disproportionately smaller than a successful cast of a school. So if you use a recall amulet like 10 times, you get maybe 1 enchant experience, but if you do it for mysticism, that's 10 mysticism experience. So like if you're not gonna use absorb health from the start, you really want to get every ounce of experience you can. So like I would recommend not using amulets. But obviously for like a warrior, that recall amulet in Caldera is like invaluable. It's like genuinely, it speeds up, like it's such a godsend. Opened your new vid and went to shower. I'm gonna listen to you talk about Morrowind. Just took a shower listening to it's No More Heroes. It's the leitmotif that Travis sings. Dude, that's like what that the leitmotif makes is one of my shower go-tos. I have it timed out to get everything done by a certain point in it. Washing my hair to Heat in Your Heart and Destroy Resort is so great. Dude, I hate having fucking dry. I hate washing my hair because it always frizzes up the next day. I had to do like a hightail. It wouldn't get out of my. The middle part wouldn't get out of my fucking face, and it's so frizzy. It's annoying. Also, this is edited to ignore a blunder I made. So when I did this myself, I accidentally used the Bitter Cup before I joined the Thieves Guild, and my Bitter Cup stat that I dumped was personality, so I actually couldn't join. So I had to like use the console to raise my personality and then join and then lower it again. But I edited it together to make it look all smooth. But yeah, that's the only downside of using the Bitter Cup at level 1 is if you forget, you can fuck yourself out of a faction. Because like certain factions literally won't let you join if your stats are too low. Below 30 for them, which is impossible outside of orcs. Orcs are the only race that can actually be barred from factions by their own character creation. Specifically, it's their personality. Which prevents, I think, the Cult, the Thieves Guild, I think House Lalu, East Empire Company. But yeah, I like that detail. Orcs are the only ones that can literally just be refused service from certain, or refuse to join. Which I guess is like, because like Daggerfall only happened like, I think like 8 years ago, or something like that in the lore. So it kind of makes sense. But yeah, using the Bitter Cup can actually lead you to scenarios where you can't join. Like, if you're not doing like a 30 strength pure mage, speed is probably the stat you should use the Bitter Cup to dump. And that can get you like kicked out of like, I think Lalu and Morag Tong, like you can't join them. Because I've done that before. That's why I've made it a habit to join every faction before I use the Bitter Cup. Always get a 13mm haircut. Life feels awesome. I'm so fed up by washing long ass hair. Well, the washing part's fine. Like when you're in the shower, it's dealing with it afterwards because it's like all frizzy. I feel like I'm like about to like be Dr. Manhattan and like torn apart at the molecular level because my hair's standing up. Taking into account where you are, the orcs should be grateful they're allowed in the cities. So endurance is non-retroactive, so you just always want to raise endurance as soon as possible for any character. Basically, at this point, I've realized that if you raise endurance on normal difficulty, you end up invulnerable regardless of your armor class because your health is so insane. Whereas on the flip side, on the max difficulty, you have to raise your health to be able to deal with any attacks from any enemy. Like, any enemy can just, like, maul you on max difficulty. So, like, whether or not I feel like raising endurance quickly is kind of the filter for whether or not I'm going to play on normal or max difficulty. That's kind of the only difference, too. Playing on max difficulty also makes it feel more fair to level up your major skills by training. Because, like, if you need that level to start surviving hits, it makes you feel less guilty for, like, paying for your level. Whereas, like, on normal difficulty, do you really need that level? You can probably just get out of it. You can probably just get out of it however you want. Like, especially if you're a mage, you have so many options to get out of it. Like, on normal difficulty, your bound armor set that you make, where it's like, gloves, cuirass, helm, and shield, that thing makes you fucking invulnerable on normal difficulty. So, endurance is kind of the filter between normal and max difficulty. It's like, if you don't want to raise endurance after character creation, probably just play on normal, and if you want to max it out immediately, play on max. That's kind of the only thing that changes, really. And it's kind of like, after like level 15 or so, it balances out. I've started doing a playthrough on my own time, because I wanted to explore Tamriel Rebuilt outside of Stream, because Stream can't handle it for some reason. And, I used the Bitter Cup to dump personality to 10, or endurance to 10, and then raised it up, and that's been fairly fun, because that means you only get 1 HP a level for a little bit. It's actually really fun to do that. You hate non-retroactive endurance. I think it's bad in Morrowind and Oblivion, because it's non-compelling. The only situation where I didn't raise endurance was a self-imposed challenge. That's it. There's no choice if you're on max difficulty. You raise endurance because that's your health. It's not compelling. It's not like, oh, well, because I chose not to do endurance this level, I get something else. It's like, no, you can just max endurance and then do other stats. So it's not interesting. I actually think a way more interesting way to do it would be to have endurance and intelligence act the same way, so that you actually do feel more compelled that you have a different choice. I don't know. There's gotta be some way to make it compelling, but it's just boring in this game in Oblivion. Especially in Oblivion where it's necessary. Like, even on the normal difficulty, you really don't want to dump endurance in Oblivion. It's also terrible in Fallout, but it's decent if you get 10 endurance during the character creation. I mean, Fallout's pretty balanced around your health being largely dictated by character creation, right? Like in New Vegas, I feel like in New Vegas, the difference between 1 and 10 endurance is more than the endurance you get through leveling up to 30, right? Like in New Vegas. I've done this math before because I modded... I wanted to have non-retroactive endurance. I wanted to have no level up endurance in New Vegas at all. I wanted it to be entirely character level up dependent. Level -1 times 5. So 5 hit points a level. I can't do that math off the top of my head. Five times 30 is 150. 10 times 20 is 200. So your initial health does have more of a dictation on your health for the base game. Obviously the DLC ruins this, because of course it does. DLC always ruins everything. But yeah, that's what I mean. Like, having 10 endurance is more important than getting to max level. Obviously they stack. So, but yeah, your initial endurance is more important, which I kind of prefer. I think I prefer this because it gives everyone a fighting chance at level 30, but it makes you fucking bulky if you invest into endurance at character creation. But also, special is just like diametrically opposed to attributes. Attributes, like, you gain in power as you grow, whereas like your special allocation dictates your power throughout the whole game, because you like branch off of it. That's why I like both of them. I like both of them because I think special and Elder Scrolls attributes are both really interesting ways to go about the similar idea. I meant old Fallout games where it's not retroactive and enemies can deal 1,000 damage by a crit using an automatic weapon, even if you manage to get tons of health. I mean, I've heard that the two Fallouts are pretty easy if you know what you're doing. Like, if you just build your character right, I've heard that you don't have any trouble in those games. But I've never played them, so I can't say. If you use magic, you earn money on these quests, but if you're a pure thief, I think you lose money doing these early quests. Because, like, if you're a pure thief, you're not going to be able to bribe that guy in, like, 2 10s, like I just did. Or 3 10 gold bribes. You're probably going to have to use some hundreds, so you're barely going to make any money. You're going to have to pay off your bounty from this if you don't do the questline all at once, you know. There's... Being a pure thief is, like, so much worse for thief factions than being a mage. It's so sad. I'm actually thinking about doing, like, a melee equivalent of this video, but, like, talking, because I have to go over more detail about why warriors are so much worse outside of combat in Morrowind, but they're, like, arguably much better than mages in combat. That's kind of how I feel about it. And it's like, damn, thieves really just don't get it either way. Mages are, like, the gods of Morrowind outside of combat. And then if you have, like, max difficulty or DLC, you want to be a warrior. And it's just like, you don't really want to be a thief. Like, I think it's mostly because there's no real critical strike system. Like, you get one critical strike, but the instant you damage an enemy, they know you're there. There's no getting around that, so you can't chain crits. Whereas, like, the ability to chain sneak crits is kind of what, like, supports it in Oblivion and makes it overpowered in Skyrim. Does playing Purist builds make sense? I think Tez is attractive. You can mix archetypes. Oh, for sure. This is not, like, a pure mage build by any means. Because I start wearing armor. The medium armor is a combat skill. I also technically run, and athletics is a combat skill. I buy things, so technically that's a thief skill. I jump, so I think that's a thief skill as well. Acrobatics. Trying to think. Armor obviously is a combat skill, and we tagged that. Like, it's impossible to do pure builds in this game because every specialization has 9 skills, and you have 10 to allocate at character creation. You could technically walk and never jump. That is technically possible. I wouldn't want to, though. And then, like, unlike Oblivion where you have, like, a spell deficit for wearing armor, you can just wear armor and still be a mage in this game. Like, it's actually more so just that armor, like, logistically doesn't work for a mage. Because, like, you have to maintain it, which means you also have to be good at armor. right? And you're probably not as a mage unless you do this specific build. And then it's like, it's super fucking heavy if you do anything above light. So if you want actual protection, I mean, look at this, 150 weight. Wearing a set of bone mold would put this at like 130. Like, you don't have the room for it. So it's like, that. I think that's why it makes sense. Like, if you want to wear armor, you just have to have the strength to carry it. I do think unarmored is like lopsidedly poor compared to light armor, but that's mostly because of Tribunal. I think armor weight must affect casting chance, not the power of the spell. It doesn't, but it indirectly does. So your fatigue affects your spell chance, and if you're more encumbered, you lose fatigue faster when you run. So this character would say lose fatigue at maybe like 1 or 2 a second off this encumbrance, but if it was like 120, they'd be losing like 4 or 5 per second. So your encumbrance ratio also determines how much you lose fatigue. So you could wear that set of bone mold and be at 120 and never pick anything up, but you'd also lose fatigue by running more and have worse spell chance. So like in a lot of indirect ways, your armor class dictates your playstyle. But not directly. In Oblivion, it does. In Oblivion, you can't get 100% spell effectiveness while wearing armor. That's sort of how unarmored works in Oblivion, because there is no unarmored skill in Oblivion. Which I think unarmored should be a skill. I think unarmored would probably work best if it just had like a passive evasion bonus, dependent on your skill level. Maybe just evasion chance instead of armor. You can't do that 1-to-1 because max unarmored is like 76, so being 75% able to dodge attacks would be OP. But you could make an argument that that's fair, because that's max unarmored and you're never going to get there organically. That also means you have literally no armor when you do get hit. I think that would be fair. But as it is now, unarmored is really bad compared to light armor, because it's weaker and it has no enchant value. Whereas you get Dark Brotherhood armor for free because of Tribunal. And glass armor is like decently enchantable, I think. I don't think it is, but yeah. Get fucking whopped. Because she's based and buys drugs. Yeah, I mean, look at this character. This is like an insanely jacked character, but because you don't have the room to run around, those rats just fuck you up. Because you don't have any starting health. That's a nice... I love how that transitions. There is no Master Medium Armor Trainer, by the way. This guy teaches to 82, and I think that's the highest you can get. But he's just some random shirtless orc next to Dagon Fell. So funny. He's like the orc Caius. What's your next hyperfixation after Morrowind? I'm either going to do a melee equivalent to this video, but I'm going to talk over it, or I'm going to try to get Daggerfall to work. Or I'm going to play Ratchet and Clank for a week, or I'm going to try Pokemon. Or I could try Zelda. Those are like the few things I have on mind. Average medium armor user. He's the master unarmored trainer. It's so base because he's just naked. He's got some grippers on him, doesn't he? Look at those things. Look at those. Oh my goodness. How have I never noticed? Look at that toe. That's like the size of my finger. Do you see that fucking thing? God, you'd have to be good at giving head just to take. You'd have to struggle not to gag on the toe. Oh, I was also thinking about finishing Jujutsu Kaisen and catching back up on Chainsaw Man and making videos on them. Because the Chainsaw Man movie is coming out, and the one... Chainsaw Man Part 1 has, like, a decent through-line theme about, like, grooming and, like, the way that, like, psychopathic people use their looks to, like, control people. And I kind of wanted to catch up on Part 2 and see if that's, like, at all kept up on. There's, like, the part where, he thinks that, like, his sister is dead, and he's still horny. And he's, like, literally having, like, a mental breakdown because he's, like, thinking about sex when his sister could be dead. So it's kind of like that trauma lingers on Denji. And I was thinking about reading it to see if I just missed it and there's, like, more about that in Part 2. But when I read it for the first time, Part 2 was kind of, like, boring. Like, it's a decent story, but it doesn't at all feel like a follow-up to Part 1. Which, like, that might be the point. Is that it's not like some... It's not like it just focuses on the exact same things, but it's kind of interesting. But I stopped reading right when, like, the big action part of the story started happening, so I have no clue what's going on. You consider playing Daggerfall Unity with hot anime female sprites? No. Yeah, apparently you can get away with nudity on YouTube if it's like Daggerfall. That Ragnarok guy has a part where he has a gif of like a danger seducer and she's got like her nipples out and everything. The video's still up. Yeah, being able to unlock 100 spells at the start just warps the economy too. Not only are you having Fortify Mercantile to buy shit cheaper, you have like infinite money because you can just go like get Scourge and the Curse of the Savior's Hide and like this shit at level 1 for money. Look, I hate that like Tamriel Rebuilt is just an extension of the base game. But I do love that Telvanni literally calls it chores. You know, they're like self-aware about it. They're like, you're just some punk. Like, you're gonna do chores for me until I know that you're the real deal. Whereas, like, you know, Tamriel Rebuilt is a mod that can do whatever it wants, and you're still fucking buying ingredients for the Mages Guild people. Ugh. Oh, fuck, I made a mistake. I forgot the iron index there. Actually, no, I didn't. It's Divithfear's national dex. He's a Pokemon collector. He literally is a collector, so it makes sense. It's not a mistake. They're not even nude, they're looking like anime girls for Gooners. Are we talking like Moemon or something else? I don't know. I don't need my Daggerfall characters to look like anime girls. I think Daggerfall characters can just look like Daggerfall characters. I love that Daggerfall characters are literally just like 2D pictures that have like shadow drops and everything. They literally look like cardboard cutouts. The way that they like interact with the stage. It's really funny. Hungarian trap stories. This is also why Telvanni is so based. You only need to become a lawman and a mouth, and then you can just keep doing all the quests and he'll just advance you. The only thing you have to do is your stronghold, but your stronghold gets built, like becomes available to be built once you join him. So once you do that, you don't have to get any more stat requirements. Whereas for the Mages Guild, you have to get I think at least to 70, and then the dialogue option becomes available at Trebonius. So this has saved me so much time, because like that's usually the big roadblock if you build your stronghold with Golden Saints. You have to be strong enough to kill them. But it's like, if you do that, you can just go buy the shit. That's the reason why I had to record all of this off screen, is because like even recording this at like a decent bit rate at like I think 6,000 and dropping the frame recording rate to 30 still had chugs like this for a 30 FPS game. I can't stream it and record a good enough quality without my computer melting. Which is weird, because my computer was like... I built my computer to be fairly strong. I think my computer's just getting worn down. Because I've been using it for like streaming for like I think 3 years, so... Fresh to death, goddamn! It looks so good. The blue Powerade juice. I want Powerade so bad now. It's insanely cheaper to make a Levitate spell using Fortify Speed than Levitate. If you would have put 25 points of Levitate, I think that jacks the cost up to about 80 or 90. And it's like almost impossible to cast. I don't get why, honestly, but... I really do love that GIF. I didn't mean to put it in there twice, but it works in both cases. It's just like, that's how it feels when you use Scourge and you... Do you clean and change thermopaste regularly on your PC? I didn't even know you were supposed to. I did it in a certain way so that I wouldn't have to do it again. And therefore reduce performance. I also make a really concerted effort to keep my PC cool. I like keep a fan on it constantly, like an external fan and internal fans, and then I literally keep my house cooler to like keep my PC cool. Like when I stream, I turn the air on like cooler than it normally is. Yeah, fucking get fucked, bozo. I don't know if I'd be able to just instantly snap to the moment this comes from. I don't know why my ad block is taking off
Are you suffering
ads.
from Starfield-induced boredom? Are you tired of going Quest Journal, which is a separate menu that looks like an actual journal? You flip through the pages for quest info, along with a quest list. And this journal is going to be your new best friend, because as I alluded to earlier, Morrowind is completely devoid of quest markers, and you have to rely on your own wits and verbal instructions the NPCs give you on where to find people and places. On paper, this sounds like a ridiculously dog-shit idea, wanting to use quite a bit, as in this playthrough, foolishly didn't tag alteration magic. There's some serious punishment on your gear. But once we take down the goblin chiefs and the...
I don't know where it is in this video. But he has a part where he says, hey, cheese or be cheesed, bonehead. That is one of my favorite. It makes me lol. It makes me lol. I love how edgy this is. Yeah, obviously. Morrowind is designed in such a way that you reach the power threshold on like a character very quickly before you've done most of the game. Which I've talked about this on stream before. I think that while this could be better, Morrowind definitely benefits from this approach as opposed to say, Oblivion's approach, where you end up feeling weak the entire game. And then, like, once you finally hit even, and you're, like, oh, you're at your strongest, and enemies aren't at their strongest at, like, exactly level 20, then they scale again, and you're both kind of just equal again. Like, it could be that, so I'll never take it for granted that Morrowind is the way it is, but yeah, realistically, this character is done, right? Like, other than the DLC, which are fucking weirdly tuned, I can do anything on this character. I can do any Daedric quest, I can do any faction line all the way through. I can beat the main story, right? So it's just like, just push it to the limit is more so what this section is. Just go get all the shit you want. What's strange is I think you can make a pretty legitimate argument melee characters actually hit this point earlier. Because if you start with high endurance, you have insane health pools earlier in your levels. And from there, all you need is Bound Longsword as a red guard, really. It's more about your survivability as a warrior. And it kind of depends on how you build. But you can absolutely like rush like the Dragonbone Cuirass, the Fist of Randagolf, the Ebony Tower Shield, or the Iodon Shield. You can rush really good items as a warrior. Whereas, like, for this build to really work, you need Arian's Helper, or the Gothrin's Dremora, as, like, a partner. Because early on, you're just too frail to get off all your spells. That's kind of why I think combat has a legitimate argument, because, like, starting your character with 100 endurance as a warrior is kind of crazy for what it does to your health at, like, level 40. Just make you invulnerable. I suddenly remembered Fist of the North Roar. It's an anime. Fist of the North Roar. XD nuzzles you. It was the side eye. Yeah, this part, security and enchant for intelligence, acrobatics, longsword for strength, sneak, light armor for agility, athletics for speed. You want these, you want to max out athletics, speed, and acrobatics for the DLC, because the enemies are overtuned and will destroy your boots with blinding speed in one hit. And then max out heavy armor too, because you're going to wear the Fist of Randagolf, and like the Ebony Tower Shield for its enchant value. But I mean, this is pretty self-explanatory. You'll never get enchant to 100 by using enchanted items. So, kind of sucks, but it's how it be on this bitch of an earth. Another way that the DLCs kind of ruined the armor balance of the game, because, like, medium versus heavy armor is, like, kind of compelling in vanilla, like, with no DLC. Because it's like, okay, heavy armor is obviously stronger, protects you for more, and it has a higher enchant value with, like, ebony, but it's fucking heavy. That's the point. But medium armor is, like, not dog shit like light armor is, but it doesn't have the ceiling that that heavy armor does either. But you can also get Orcish pretty easily, and that's basically as good as you're getting until you kill Ordinators, right? But then, yeah, the DLC is just like, nope, adamantium armor. You just gotta buy it. So it's just like, well, I mean, fuck, man. Heavy armor obviously still has the highest ceiling because of, like, Daedric Tower Shield, Ebony Tower Shield, and then Ebony armor having the highest enchant value in the game. Not to mention the Dragonbone Cuirass and the Lord's Mail have the highest armor rating of any piece in the game, tied for base value and effective value with the Ebony Mail. So, like, it's still a little compelling, but, like, between Dark Brotherhood armor, adamantium armor, and late game heavy armor, unarmored is so fucking dog shit in this game. It's sad. It's worthless on max difficulty. Unarmored is strong enough that you can kind of get away with it on normal, but like, god damn, man. Unarmored fucking sucks. Do you use 3 in your conversation often? Sometimes. Depends on who I'm talking to. You gotta match the vibe. You know, sometimes you talk to people and you can't be 3. Then some people will let you be yourself. You know? Yeah, just like speed run. Just do this, do this, do this. Ring of Equity gives you 100% spell absorption. You can use it to cheese fights. But it's not necessary. What's the C? I don't know what the C is in 3. Yeah, I actually disabled my Imperial Legion badge mod so that this video would be more authentic. But I used to just use a mod for that. But you can do this instead, which is infinitely funnier. Rat Cave, Rat Cave. 3rd best heavy curse, 5th best in game. It's the Lord's Mail. So it's the 3rd best heavy curse because the Dragonbone curse is like strictly better. Identical armor value and 100% resist fire constant effect. No competition. But I also consider the Ebony armor to be better because you can actually enchant it. I kind of care about this. The enchant value is 50, I think. 40. That's still ridiculous. That's like constant effect territory. You can put a point of health. You can put, like, I think, like, 8 point of fatigue. You can do some crazy shit with 40. You can put, like, water breathing, slow fall. You can do shit with 50. And I don't fucking care about the Lord's Mail curing poison. I don't want the fucking Skyrim version. What? Do I look like I get views on YouTube? Yeah, cure poison on self, resist magic at 20 to 30 points. It's fucking ass. So, like, the exact use case for this is that you use poison offensively, which, like, no. You're not gonna. And then you use spells that deal very little damage over time, so that if it reflects, you can cure yourself. Which you're not going to do. You're going to use spells that actually fucking hurt the enemy, so you won't have time to cast this. And then... when the fuck are you using poison? And if you get poisoned by something, you're probably not going to linger long enough to switch to your Lord Mail enchantment. So it's like, what the fuck is the value of this enchantment? This is like one of the strangely, like, most dog shit enchantments I've ever seen in the game. This is like your reward for doing an entire faction, by the way. This is like your Ebony Mail of the Legion. Do you kind of get me? This is like your Ice Blade of the Monarch, your Boots of the Apostle, your Ring of the Wind of the Legion. It's so dog shit, man. Just make you immune to poison. It's even hotter at home. If you turn off your AC, it would be. I still don't know what the C means. Why don't I look it up? What is the C in :3C? A hand. Oh, it means like this. Uh-oh. It means like this. That's what it means. Today I learned. It looks stupid. It makes it look like you have a magnet on your face. Oh, why is it the 5th best curious? Wait a second. Okay, Ebony Dragonbone Ebony Mail. What other cuirasses are better? Oh, Curse of the Savior's Hide is better on a Breton, and so forth. What's the last cuirass that I'm talking about here? Oh, heavy cuirass. So Curse of the Savior's Hide and Ebony Mail. Because Ebony Mail is medium. Yeah. It's worse than all four of those. It's still better than Daedric. Because you're actually going to get it. You don't have, like... I love all these factions, and you don't have to have, like, the trial by combat with Colt to become the leader. You just kind of become the leader. Or you don't become the leader, you just kind of rise to a... What is it? A primate, and that's it. Mantle of Time. Yeah, Mantle of Woe Time, baby! This is the one case where poison is really useful. Golden Saints reflect. So you, as a high elf, you don't want to use damage or absorb. And they resist the 3 elements, so you don't even want to use shock here. Poison is the most effective for sure. 1320 is like, I think 260, and they have a 250 health pool, so. This is like one of those cases where you would actually use like that Fortified Destruction spell to like cast this. And like, as long as you don't aggro, they won't attack you the entire time. Which, that's RNG, whether or not they aggro. But, this is the cheese way to do it. You can also just be jacked enough to kill them. Like, as a warrior, eventually you can just fucking murder them. It's so funny. That lady has guaranteed exquisite clothing because of the fact that you have to go there for the main quest. When you buy the slave girl and you have to dress her up as a Telvanni lord, she has all the stuff for it. So if you buy this, you can fuck yourself out of that quest. But I don't ever do that quest. The quest sucks ass. I don't have one 1:3. No AC. No fans. By the way, in the base game, the distinction is that the best helm that provides actual armor is the ebony closed helm at 50, which is good, right? Obviously, it keeps in line with the end game of heavy armor is the best because it has the highest defense and enchant. But the best helmet that has any enchant possible is the cephalopod helmet, 100. But it's extremely brittle and gives you no armor, so it's an actual choice. If you're like a pure warrior, you probably want the ebony helm, but for enchant, you definitely want that cephalopod helm. So it's kind of compelling, right? You know, it's kind of interesting. And then fucking the Helm of Tohan is just 150 enchant, and it's medium armor, and it's adamantium quality. So, like, fuck you. He's so fucking jacked. Yeah, after a certain point, when you get your conjuration high enough, you can just make a 10-second Flame Storm Frost Atronach spell. Not in that order. Order it as Flame, then Frost, then Shock, and do it for 10 seconds. That gives them enough time to spam all their spells, and that's all you really care about, because you want them to spam their spells when they spawn. You can probably cut it down to 5 seconds, but that's a really good spell. It's an incredibly powerful spell. Look at this fucking stat spread. Literally the only thing that isn't 100 is personality. This character is fucking yoked. This is so crazy. Why is the agility 150? Fist of Rainagolf and Ring of the Wind. And then, speed isn't 100, it's 70. But it's technically 270, so I don't really care. Yeah, I love looking at high-end characters. It feels so fucking awesome running around yoked like this. It goes on so long.
But a good man finishes what he started. Fight to the end. Your most formidable opponent awaits in the castle. Now, off to the Garden of Madness.
It's some scripting bug. The way that he reacts to being told that Orvis Dren was dealt with, it advances your Lalu stage for some reason. And if you're not in Lalu, it advances it by joining you to Lalu, and then each time is an advancement. So, I'm not entirely sure if that's how it works, but essentially if you just click Command and Tong enough, you become the Grand Master of House Lalu. The fucking... I love this picture I made so much. It's just Caius, Arian, and Curio. It's like a reverse harem. Because I made the high elf lady and she's just got this harem of like faction leaders. Cringinal.
Come Nerevar, friend or traitor, come.
Oh, I missed one. I tried to put in a sound effect every time I died. I missed one right there, because I got killed by Helseth, and I put that in. I should have... What should I have put for that one? I might edit this if it doesn't get any views to fix that index misspelling. Like, if this stays at, like, under 100 views, I'll fix the issues and then re-edit it. And re-upload it. What should I put there? I used up, like, all my death sounds. Like, I used up Solid Snake and Yoda. And, like, the Thwomp. Maybe a Vine Boom. Just so that every video has a Vine Boom in it. Oh, I could do the, like... Oh, like that one. That one would be funny. By the way, these guys are fucking yoked. They're the Royal Guard! Oh, no, not armor. Morrowind. Where is it? Yeah, they have the Royal Blood ability. Fortify attack 50 points, so they're hitting you. Fortify long blade 50 points. Yeah, they're absolutely hitting you every shot. Immunity to fire, resist poison, frost, and shock 50% each. So you're basically screwed on destruction. And reflect 50 points. They're absolutely fucking insane. Which is why I dealt with them the way that I did. Surprisingly, they're way easier as a melee character. Daedric Katana Chronicles. That's like the best enchantment you can put on a sword by far. By far. Because, like, the reason that melee has a higher ceiling, I think, in combat than magic is because of the way that enchant works with weapons. You can get it to where every weapon you have has 400 swings of your enchantment and then just make an AoE swing. So just make, like, fire damage 20 points in 50 feet, and then just, you have infinite swings of it, So even though it's theoretically a lot weaker than like an AoE fit, like a 100 damage spell, you have more swings of it in every fight. And because you can live hits, you can get all of them off. It ends up being a lot stronger than magic in practice. But like this is literally the ideal enchantment on a sword in the game, like a melee weapon. Because 100 points once you're past 50 is just straight up plus 100% like base damage. So it's not multiplicative, but like if you're at like 100 strength, this makes you do 150% damage, which is fucking nuts when you get to things like Daedric weapons. And then it's immune to reflect. Like you can't get this reflected. So it doesn't matter if an enemy just has a reflect button to try and like fuck over mages. You just beat the hell out of them. And like when you consider that you can get like 20 points of Corporus, 20 points from the Fist of Randagolf, this is like almost getting you to like double the damage that it's saying on your weapon. Like three times what the weapon damage would be. So like a Daikatana is 60. So like based off the strength multiplier, you'd be doing 180 per swing. It's fucking crazy. Absolutely insane. And then yeah, I use OpenMW for flex settings. Otherwise, Absorb Health is too strong from the start. You need some way to get around to nerf it. So like, you can just do the DLC the right way, and you technically end up stronger because you get an ability from Almalexia that permanently increases your armor. But like, fuck that. I hate Tribunal. That's what I bitch about in this next paragraph. It's the Beam Katana. Yeah, Dark Brotherhood destroys armor classes because of the light armor. Fortify skill is like really overpowering, like outside of combat for mages. The sewers. Every enemy being stronger than the other is fucking ass. It still doesn't make any sense that werewolves are like the most physically threatening enemy in the game. It doesn't make any sense on any level, but this is what I do think is good about it, is like you can just ignore Blood Moon and still go to Solstheim. You can do the East Empire Company quest line there, like, because it's a faction that has quests for you to do, and there are still things to find on Solstheim without the story. Like you can go find the Mantle of Woe, or I mean, I guess that's about it. But you can do that. You can find Stalrim in caves if you want a full set of frost armor. Which, like, I think that's a much better way to do the medium armor thing than just throwing adamantium in. Is, like, if you want to, once you're strong enough to handle Solstheim, you can go peek into caves and look for Solstheim to make armor with out of the people. Once you get cleared with Graring, you can make your own set of ice armor, which is like better than the base game medium armors. So I think that's an interesting way to do it. That's a lot better than just, oh, you can just buy adamantium. Here's Dark Brotherhood armor. You know. These quests are so fucking ass. Her scene is pretty anti-mage for sure. I don't remember the specific value he has. Aspect of Guile. Immune to frost, resist magic 50%, immune to paralyze, immune to normal weapons, reflects 50% of the time, resist fire 75%. So the only... Here's the big kickers, restore health. I only had damage over 3 second spells, which means that I literally couldn't penetrate his regeneration. And the one spell I had was a fire damage spell, which meant that it only would have done 25 damage on shot. And every time it had a chance to reflect. So I logistically could not beat him with the spells I had. This is an enemy that I should have looked into, because I should have obviously known they'd have some bullshit anti-magic thing. But yeah, he straight up, he walled me. I tried it for a little bit. It just was not going to happen. The resist magic of 50 points is too much to make absorb health worth it when he's got that much regeneration going on, and every reflect just put him instantly back to full. I don't know how you would beat this guy as a pure mage without doing what I did. Which I mean, like, it doesn't look glamorous, but it is technically magic because I summoned everything. This is completely unedited. It's just so glorious. I could have done this to Helseth in hindsight. But it's so much funnier to reveal it here. That was so much fun to work on. I struggled a little bit on the enjoyment aspect, like during factions and like the early game, what I call it, yeah, training and useful items. Those parts were kind of boring. But this is like one of the only videos where I enjoyed the process more than I disliked it. This video is goated. I love this video. Alright. Now to switch to this one, which is significantly less fun since it's like review-esque. It's not strictly a review. So like going into this, I want to establish what the title means for what the video is, right? Because like I watch a lot of like Patrician, for instance, and this is not like an in-depth critical analysis, right? This is not like a deep retrospective or like a review purely. It doesn't really hold up by those standards. I'm willing to admit that straight up. Like, it's just not a good review, if that's what if that's what you're measuring it by. It's mostly a views video that I also just wanted to use as an excuse to rant about Morrowind, right? So the title is Morrowind worth playing in 2025. It was for 2024 when it came out, but actually no, it isn't. I titled it that even though it released in December of 2024. December 29th. Yeah. I hope you weren't sick of Kashmir Cannonball. Okay, now the music in this one is way more quiet, so I'm going to put on my own music. Because I'm also going to pause this one, I think, more. The music in this video isn't as loud. So, like, you at home, right? If you're a Morrowind fan, this video is worthless to you. I would say. It's mostly entertainment value at this point, which is one thing I get out of it. I think it's funny. but the question is irrelevant to you because you like Morrowind, right? So, like, this video is incredibly disliked. The ratio is not shown, which I kind of hate, but whatever. No, that's my community. I'm reacting right now. Oh yeah, this is still up. I don't know what's actually wrong with him. But help Wes Johnson. It's incredibly disliked. It's oh, it's gone up over time. It used to be 25-30%. But yeah, people generally don't like this video. And it's mostly because they don't really get it. Like, the point of the video isn't if Morrowind's good or not. It's should you play it? And it's like, well, if you already play Morrowind, you know yes, you should play it. But the point is, like, for Skyrim fans, like Oblivion fans, right? And I honestly don't think Oblivion and Skyrim fans would like Morrowind, which is why the answer is no. I don't think that vanilla Morrowind is for those people. And it's a two-way street. I kind of don't want it to be. I don't want more Morrowind. I want, like, a sequel to Morrowind. And I don't think Oblivion is a sequel in what I want out of a sequel of Morrowind. That's why I kind of hate Project Tamriel. Because it's not, like, an improvement on what Morrowind is or anything like that. It's just more Morrowind. Like, to like, an annoying degree. To where, like, the quests are dog shit in the same way that some of the base game ones are. You know, there's balance issues. Like, there's just, like, a katana you can get for free that fortifies your long blade for 25 points that's made out of ebony. And it's, like, incredibly easy to get. You know, shit like that. That's why people love it, but, like, I don't want that. I want, like, a sequel to Morrowind that genuinely improves on its aspects without going to Oblivion. Because, like, Oblivion's flaws are pretty bad. And what it does well isn't really doing well to improve on Morrowind, right? So I think that's kind of important to establish out the gate. And that's why the answer is no. I don't think vanilla Morrowind is for normal people. It's a little intro section done by Big Sexy.
Which I understand might be hard to believe, but for reference, some of my favorite video games of all time are Ocarina of Time, Fallout New Vegas, and the first generation of Pokemon. I'm no stranger to Rush.
Scrimbim! That's from Oni Plays. I have to manage this. The audio is really quiet for some reason. Yeah, graphics don't matter. There are genuinely cases of Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time is a game where I think the graphical improvement is almost just, like, better. And the 3D, like, I'm willing to just say it's just better. But even at that, there are still moments in Ocarina of Time where the original N64 version looks better because of the way that the environment is being used. Like the fog in the Forest Temple, or like the way the Shadow Temple looks in general. The like really dark, like shadowy Ganon fight. There's just no... I honestly, it just depends. You have to do what you can with what you have. Like, the original Super Mario Bros. Doesn't look that bad because it was well done at the time. I don't really know if I believe in games aging as a concept anymore. Like, I think if you want to talk about games aging, I think you have to talk about, like, pre-2000. And even then, like, a lot of 90s games have barely aged. Like, 90s is, yeah, I'd say pre-2000. Because, like, before then, they're still figuring things out. But, like, ever since you get to, like, the N64 and, like, the GameCube and the PS, change since then has basically just been, like, graphical presentation. Essentially. It just looks better. There's a few cases where things are held back by their time, like Oblivion's Radiant AI system, I think, was extremely demanding on that game. I could be wrong, but I think that's the case. Like, Skyrim is physically held back by its engine. You literally can't move fast in that game because the game would crash if you moved out of its render distance too fast. That's why horses and werewolves are so slow in Skyrim. There are cases where, like, the technology physically holds back a game, but why can I move fast in Morrowind? Because the game, you know, is accommodating for it. Because everything looks blockier and the game can run smoother, you know. It's trade-offs. If you're going to trade graphics, if you're going to increase your graphics at the detriment of the game running better and being able to do more inside the game, then I don't know, man. Those graphics, like, they better suck my cock. You know what I mean? And it's like, does Skyrim's graphics suck my cock? I don't really think they do, you know?
Fallout New Vegas, and the first generation of Pokemon. I'm no stranger to rough graphics, and I never installed additional graphical mod packs on top of OpenMW.
You can actually make the case Morrowind looks better on, like, the Xbox port, or, like, at minimal settings, which is what I started doing on stream. Shit, I didn't mean to go to this.
Resistance. Then
It was about... yeah, this one.
communicated with the bug is your item and element.
Yeah, like, this is arguably more charming than, like, OpenMW at max settings. And this is a lot closer to what it would look like in vanilla. With, like, the resolution and, like, the lower texture qualities. The only thing that's still OpenMW here, I think, is, like, shadows. And, like, the super low view distance adds, like, an ambience. I prefer the view distance to be longer for functionality, though. Not aesthetics.
I'm also going to defend the overwhelming brown of the game, as I think the game is strikingly beautiful. As you go around the coast and starting town of Seydonin, you'll see swampy beaches, then a rocky inlet around Balmora and Caldera, before the game goes to the red-brownish mountain everyone meets on, which makes geographical sense as Vardenfell is a volcanic island. But more than that, I feel does add a visual distinction to the general difficulty progression of the game. The more peaceful-looking areas are the easiest, with the brown-reddish mountains containing the highest amount of blighted enemies and ash storms, which will make navigation by directions more difficult and disorienting. However, to contrast this is the sky, which outside of poor weather is a beautiful blue sky in the day and starry at night, which really highlights that Vardenfell is within the Elder Scrolls setting. While Daggerfall, Cyrodiil, and Skyrim tend to have more picturesque fantasy settings, Morrowind looks much closer to something like Fallout, and the bleak situation the region is in is highlighted beautifully by the geography of the region being somewhat abrasive. When this almost antagonistic world is contrasted to the bright blue sky, it reminds you that there is a world worth living in this game, and that your struggle to help this region's people is worth it, which is something I felt multiple times once the storms were past. On the
Yeah. I was spitting, for real, for real. I can't really add anything to that. The visual design in this game is so genius. Like, it looks like a shithole a lot of the time, because it is. But, like, there's enough hints that it's still a world that's, like, worth fighting for. I should have turned off the map when I recorded stuff. It's a little distracting that it's down there in the corner. But this was back when I needed the map because I didn't have the map memorized. And, the little local map is worthless. So if you want to navigate, you need that thing open.
weaker side are the ancestral tombs, which can be very bland if you have to complete them back to back. But even then, the caves usually make up for this, as makes sense considering the volcanic activity. The caves tend to always have spots of water for visual flair. And sometimes, like with the Urshalaku cave, you'll get something really visually striking. The sound design is moved on a bit, and since training restoration manually while running around Vivek.
I fucking hate this sound. I hate all the cast sounds because I train spells when I walk around. The only one I don't hate is Alteration. I hate alteration and destruction. I fucking hate restoration, conjuration, and illusion. I've heard those goddamn sounds hundreds of thousands of times. I gotta say, I think they lasted longer than they should have, though. Like, the Skyrim, like, twinkle when you, like, heal is, like, annoying to me just for memory. But, like, it took me a while to get sick of the sounds in Morrowind for spells.
And using ice magic, since it's the best for the Denver population, has made my teeth hurt. I do think in a vein similar to Oblivion's silly dialogue, that the game's audio-visual presentation can at times be downright hilarious. I adore goofy games, so the moment-to-moment gameplay being silly is something I appreciate. And it's honestly so impressive that the amazing skyboxes and evil, scary Dwemer ruins coincide with RuneScape character models and Windows 7 sound effects, and it doesn't feel very wrong. Movement is something that should be trivial, but sadly is actually worth going over.
This is the kind of thing where if this was like an actual review, this would make it pretty bad. So like I didn't clarify in the context of what, right? Because like movement is pretty important to like there isn't a guarantee of movement. Like the movement in Ocarina of Time and like Sonic Mania is completely different, for instance, because those games are trying to do different things. But I mean more in the context of like an Elder Scrolls Fallout game. Like it should just be that you move, right? And I agree with that still. That like the fact that you move so fucking slow is fucking annoying.
In Morrowind, you move fucking slow. Like to such an insane degree I don't think people actually understand. To get the point across, the character I have on screen is a Bosmer, who naturally starts at 50 speed, who took speed as a specialized attribute, tagged athletics as a major skill, which factors into the equation, and took the Siege for a 25-point bonus to speed, making this the fastest start possible. Here's an orc who starts with 30 speed that didn't tag speed or athletics or take the steed sign. What's even crazier is that what I just showed you was running, and that the game actually has a walking feature.
She see on my shanty till I too. Who up seeing their shanty right now? What's really surprising is that it didn't filter Morrowind fans. Like, I guess Morrowind fans really are just used to cock and ball torture, because I didn't filter them. All the comments are about shit that's after this. Like, all the comments that are, like, really bad are about stuff that's after this. It proves my point. They literally didn't get filtered by this, because they're used to bullshit like this.
Because running, the faster of the two modes, consumes fatigue. Fatigue in this game factors into RNG, and in this game, almost literally every single aspect of the game is determined by RNG, meaning spending less time walking actively hurts your ability to play the game. Or in other words, moving faster makes the game worse. There's a few justifications for this, which I want to shut down here. It's realistic. Yes, but that doesn't mean it's fun. Food is in the game, why don't you have to eat? Why can you levitate so high while still breathing if you can drown? Why don't you get infected when hit by rusty weapons if you can catch diseases from monsters? If you can jump to Solstheim, why can't you jump to Skyrim or Blacklight? Why does Valkyria not arrest you after you steal her diamonds if you shop within a day of stealing them, but come back months later of the diamond and she enters combat? Because games are meant to be fun.
I kind of disagree with this point. But it's mostly because of how I worded it. I don't think games have to be fun. But I would also say that specifically Elder Scrolls games are trying to be fun. So I don't really... This is like something that you would argue with if you're like... If you want me to be wrong, but you don't really care about making any actual points. This is something you would go after. 99% of games are trying to be fun. Video games are much different than other forms of entertainment, other mediums of art, as it is. And in general, you're trying to get fun out of a game. Now, you don't have to. You can go, like, you know, the route of, like, trying to make the person uncomfortable. That's what horror games do, right? And it's not fun, but it's enjoyable to the person playing it in the same way that, like, horror movies are not necessarily fun, but they provide something that the person likes, right? I've said it before, like, the Majora's Mask comparison is that, like, the game is stressful because of the clock system, and that stress and anxiety is, like, a part of the game, because the game is stress-inducing and anxious, right? Your game doesn't have to be fun. But, to make that case for this game, you have to really stretch. Right? You have to, like, figure out a way to justify, like, all the goofiness of the game, like things like Tar Heel. You have to figure out a way to, like... You have to do so much to, like, say that this is not trying to be a fun game. And it is. Like, I have problems with it, but it doesn't mean I think the developers were trying to fuck you. You have to also... It's also in the context of the Elder Scrolls. The Elder Scrolls are, like, fucking action RPGs. They're fun. You know? Now, I worded it poorly, so that leaves openings for it, but honestly, I don't disagree with what I meant, but I did word it badly. For sure. Because, like, you have, like, horror games, an LSD simulator, and pretty much nothing else, but, like, you know, those things are trying not to be fun. In, like, the conventional sense. So it's absolutely possible. But, I should have worded it better.
Or maybe Morrowind isn't supposed to be fun? If you think that's the case, then sure. You can restore fatigue with potions or magic. Morrowind already makes the world difficult enough for pure warriors and thieves that adding even more sway to the power of magic would just expose how dog water the game would be without magic. You end up with so much fatigue that it doesn't matter anyways. This is one of the fairer points, but honestly this promotes the insanely stunted early game, which I dislike very heavily. As a gamer...
Yeah, Morrowind's only difficult portion is the early game. That's essentially what character creation is. Character creation is like, how long do you want the early game to be? Like, the build we did earlier was basically just like, okay, you can skip the early game for a mage, and you just have to, like, play the early game around getting health. And it's like, for a warrior, you cannot be a red guard using longsword, and your early game will just be longer. It'll be worse, right? And it's like, that's kind of like, I just kind of wish Morrowind had like a difficult period after the power threshold that wasn't the DLC. Because the DLC are like so like oppositely overtuned that it's not fun. But like once you hit the power threshold, your game is over, and that only takes like 5-10 hours, depending on the character.
I would prefer the difficulty to either gradually increase or be paced evenly, which this game does completely backward.
Paced evenly, by the way, does not mean Oblivion. Someone out there would try to be like, well, you said you don't like Oblivion.
The early game is a time where not only is the world hazardous because of the enemies, but add on top of that low hit chance from your skills, since your first Morrowind build would probably suck, and then low fatigue, all because you wanted less of your time wasted walking. If fatigue management was a whole game concern, I could understand this point more. But by level 15 or 20, even on my first run, I could basically ignore it, which was incredibly suboptimally built. The boots of blinding speed exist.
I would say, in hindsight, Morrowind is strangely balanced. Like, yeah, unless you know the specific ways to break it, like, the pace of it's pretty good. Because, like, early on when you have no fatigue, and you're trying to manage it, you're fighting, like, low-level rats. And, like, the enemies you're sent to fight are, like, weak. So, like, once you have, like, the basic grasp of the mechanics, Morrowind is actually paced fairly well. Like, in each of its stages. I just think that its stages are way too short and way too few. Like, Morrowind has, like, 5 distinct stages. I'm gonna open, like, a doc to help me keep my thoughts in order. Morrowind has, like, 5 stages, right? You have, like... pre-game, if you start on max difficulty. Where combat is impossible, right? No health. And this really just depends on how you build your character. Which is why this isn't technically like a real stage, because it depends on you turning the difficulty up and how you build your character. But like the mage character literally just cannot do like rat fights at the start because you only have 30 health on max difficulty. Then you have like the early game. Not hitting all the time. Running out of fatigue. Weak. This is like, you're still, you know, early in, but like, you know, you're not dying to rats anymore. Like, you're either running out of fatigue because you're swinging weapons, or you're running away from enemies to do your shit. Like, as a mage, you want to kite. Or as an archer, you want to stay back, so you're constantly... You're struggling with fatigue no matter what. This actually double fucks archers, by the way. So, like, fuck you if you want to be a thief. Then you have, like, the mid-game. Can freely go anywhere. Can't go in everywhere. Where, like, within your quest line, you're strong enough to do most quest lines. But, like, when it comes to just, like, exploring the overworld, you're also completely set. Like, no blighted enemies can fuck you up anymore. Cliff racers aren't a problem. You can, like, do, like, all the early quests for, like, the Fighters and Mages Guild. You're consistently hitting. But if you go into the wrong cave, you fight some, like, level 20 enemy that just fucking annihilates you. And this is, like, specifically the best part of the game. Because at this point, you've realistically become strong enough that if you push your character enough, you can probably do anything. But you have to get a little creative. Like, for that mage character, this was when I went to Shishi, right? Because I had to lock that guy in there. So I had to, like, actually think outside of the box, because I didn't have the health to take hits from him. And he was too persistent and ignored my summon, so I couldn't, like, kite him. Because, like, one slip-up and I'm dead. So instead, I trapped him in there. And then let my summon wail on him while he chased me inside the door he couldn't open. You know, that's like that portion of the game, where you're strong enough to fight, but if you go to the wrong area, an enemy is just too much for you. So, like, you can leave and come back, or you can adrenaline rush. You can lock the door. You can... What do thieves have? You can be a mage or a warrior, right? And then you've got late game. Power threshold. Is it 2 H's? No, it's just 1 H. Yeah, the late game is where, because every Morrowind review, the person absolutely fucking dog walks Dagoth Ur's mortal incarnation, right? Because you're too strong. Nothing is a real challenge. No more challenge, it's kill or kill. You're too strong. And then there's, like, the post game, which is just poorly tuned DLCs. You know, like, why do I hit this, like, power threshold on the mainland and fight, like, Dagoth Ur, who, like, canonically in the game should be, like, the strongest enemy I fight? Like, literally in-universe power scaling, Dagoth Ur should be the strongest enemy I'm fighting. And then fucking, like, why are goblins in the sewers of Mournhold more of a challenge? Why am I getting gangbanged by wolves in Solstheim? Have more health than Dagoth Ur and a Solstheim mace. Also, shout out to Grom from Fort Firemoth. If you don't have the Ring of Equity, he's insane. So, like, you know, you've got one stage that's optional depending on the difficulty, and then these 4, and that's it. And I'm willing to estimate that this is like 2 hours. This is like 1 to 2 hours. One to 2 hours. You fuck off. Let me type shit. And then this is like, you know, 2 or 3 hours, I would say. This is like maybe 4 or 5 hours. And then this is like probably realistically like 10 hours of the rest of the content in the game. And then the DLC are like about 5 to 8 hours, depending on how much of the optional stuff you do. This is more of my issue with Morrowind's difficulty pacing, is like, you've got 5 stages, 2 of them that technically don't really exist, and then the rest of them are like 3-ish hours each, and then you hit the power threshold and you've still got like half the game to do. It's really bizarre. But this, and I think I go over this in the video, but I might not. It's because Morrowind doesn't expect you to do everything on one character. But I don't really prefer that, personally. But I guess that is just down to preference. But that's sort of what I mean when I say that, like, I don't really like how Morrowind's difficulties progressed. Because obviously I didn't go over it in too much detail on this. Because I'm bad. I'm bad at doing videos. My videos stink. It's why I want to smell my videos' feet.
So do Argonians and Khajiit who can't wear those boots. Even for the human race, or it, which was incredibly suboptimally built. The boots of blinding speed exist. So do Argonians and Khajiit who can't wear those boots. Even for the human races, a new player doesn't know how to find them, or circumnavigate the blinding effect. And due to the boot's low light armor nature, it nerfs all builds, and constantly repairing the 50 HP boots is a hassle if you turn the difficulty up.
Yeah, but I think that's the point. I just don't agree with this anymore. I like that the boots break. Because it creates scenarios early on where if you don't have the actual speed to back up your character, and you rely on the boots, if those boots break, like, you just get fucked. And it's, like, tense. I like that. But it is annoying in the DLC areas to get hit by a werewolf once, and then your boots are just gone. Like, it's not interesting, because at that point I have the speed to get away, or the survivability to tank it. You know, I'm not depending on the boots. And at that point, it's just a hassle. You know, it's just a pain in the ass. And yeah, Argonian and Khajiit can't wear those boots, not in canon. You have to mod in order to be able to wear those boots, so this isn't a real argument.
Or if you enter a DLC area. In short, speed either should have been faster by default or not during fatigue. There isn't even the argument that the game couldn't handle high speed.
There's more solutions than that. You have to get more creative. I think every character just moving 10 times faster than default, but at the same progression rates would be fine. Like maybe 5 times faster. Because, like, I have a mod called the Pants of Blinding Speed for Argonians and Khajiit, but you can spawn it in as a human race, and I've gotten my speed to 500, and it's like, it's pretty fast, but it's not that much faster than 300. You know? The only reason you can't make everyone faster mods is because it jacks up the animations. Like, a lot of characters that, like, idle or, like, hang out in towns or stand in one place, like, are affected weirdly by it, which is why it doesn't work. But, like, honestly, just make everyone faster. Make Cliff Racers, like, 100 speed, and just make, like, everything else, like, 2 to 5 times faster than it is now. It's like that. It's not that hard. The game already looks incredibly goofy and janky. Everyone moving fast wouldn't be a big deal. You've already got vampires in Morrowind that, like, are super goofily fast. They run so quickly that you don't have to do all this shit to pretend, you know, like Marara is fucking funny, like, the way she moves. And it's like, they're obviously okay with it there, so I don't really buy the argument that everyone can't just be faster. However, I do think that I would probably say to leave fatigue alone in the context of Morrowind specifically. This is like just critiquing Morrowind, not actually for a sequel, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here. I'm not sure. But yeah, honestly, in Morrowind, fatigue doesn't really need to be touched. The only thing that I think is bad about the way fatigue is managed is that endurance affects your health. So to get your fatigue to stop running out instantly, you also have to level up your health. Which sounds like, oh, well, that just makes endurance goated, but it's like, it's uncompelling. Because, like, every character relies on dice rolls, so every character needs their fatigue topped off. So that just pushes even more builds into, like, relying on endurance. It's not compelling. Every build wants to do endurance, and every build wants to do it as quickly as possible. So, I don't know. It's complicated because everything's tied together. In general, though, I think I would probably say just make everything faster, but keep all the fatigue rates and everything the same, and the way that fatigue works the same for Morrowind. Just make everything faster.
I've used a character that almost reached 500 speed, and that character still received damage in combat and didn't crash the game instantly.
That's because I was playing on OpenMW. That's because, yeah, I mean, that's a bad point. But, like, combat isn't unbalanced. You can kite any enemy as long as you're decently fast. You don't need the Boots of Blinding Speed to kite. Especially not if you have range. But combat is still fine without the boots. It's just that the game itself is slow. So, like, you can change the words in a sentence, right? And that changes what it means. But if you just pause in between words, you haven't changed what they mean. You just wasted my time.
Now that movement is out of the way, we should go over combat. When you swing a melee weapon, whether it be a blade, axe, blunt weapon, fist, bow and arrow, or thrown weapon, the game runs a calculation based off your agility, luck, weapon skill, and effects like attack to determine whether you hit the enemy. Hit chance. I would just say bluntly that I hate it, but that I do sadly understand that Morrowind would collapse if you took it out.
Based.
There are effectively 3 progressions baked into Morrowind: damage, hit chance, and equipment. A new character can min-max their character to have good strength from the get-go.
Yeah, there's a Nord woman, isn't it? 60 strength, endurance. What's that character build? I guess that's the default.
Meaning that with Morrowind's open world and fixed item placement philosophy, a level 1 Nord could have 60 strength and Scourge, a danger mace, which would be an end-game character. To counterbalance this, that Nord would likely have a relatively low hit chance, meaning they still couldn't reliably win against enemies like Dremora or Ordinators. If hit chance were removed, the entire game would need enemy scaling, and it would just turn into Skyrim inside of the world space of Vardenfell. The fixed item placement and enemies are too integral to what makes Morrowind, so I think hit chance is a bitter pill you have to swallow if you want to play this game.
Yeah, if you get rid of hit chance, you completely eliminate the mid-game. Which is, like, what I think is the best part of Morrowind. So, now you can essentially build your character to ignore this, right? Did I leave that dock open? There's no point in keeping this open. Not doing anything with it. So like a Red Guard combat, Longblade is major. You've basically skipped the early game portion of your sword build, right? Mages, so Bretons or Altmer. Actually, just Altmer. Bretons don't get a destruction bonus, so just High Elves that tag destruction. Basically have guaranteed damage off the start. They can skip the early game. And Bosmer that tag into Marksman can basically skip the early game. Otherwise, you do have to deal with the early game. Those are the only builds that are strong enough that without any other sacrifices to your character, you can skip the early game. every character can use the lever to get 25 agility, which effectively skips the early game. But that's such a detriment to your character, because if you're a thief, you want Lady for the personality. If you're a warrior, you want Lady for the endurance. And if you're a mage, you want the apprentice for the magicka. There's not really any more compelling birth sign choice, right? So you don't want to do the lever just to skip this, like, early game. But yeah, as much as I hate the early game because of this, it also, because of how integral it is to the way the whole game is designed, you can't remove it. That's why in a sequel, I'd want there to still be RNG to, like, allow for a progression like this, but have it tweaked so that it isn't dependent on it. Which, like, the way that I think to do it would actually just be damage ranges as RNG rolls, right? Because the game already gives a damage range based on whether or not you perform a power attack. So just have it be that the game rolls in between those. And it does this for spells as well. Like Fire Bite, right? Morrowind Fire Bite. It does it for this. Yeah, Magnitude. Magnitude is basically what I would suggest to do instead of hit chance RNG would be Magnitude RNG. And, like, Morrowind still functions fairly well on this system. Like, if you've only got 30 damage on a sword, or 30 skill in a sword, and it does, like, a range of, like, 2 to, like, 7, you're not gonna be doing enough damage to, like, whack someone to death that's too high above your level. You know what I mean? I know that it leaves in that, like, Lionel dilemma from, like, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Let me pull this up.
Royal Sword as before, with 36 damage that became full, if this up and a 600 silver.
Where's the Lionel part? I think it's here. That's a good joke.
But let's reference level swords, hammers, and axes. You'll start finding much more the first weapon for a total after darkness basic is on especially system and the game the more each one to reward element of balance renewable back again tension or a slot for whatever you either be a little trick this is for friends that showed set case I'm the same suit of four because there's so encounters carry so many weapon is worth the average or open just petty critical weapon early on pick up run out. I know how the game currently works. To avoid the other problem early on with finding high health enemies without enough weapons to kill them, there could simply be a weak unbreakable weapon or an unarmed punching attack, just like the ones the bokoblins can use, for when you run out. I know bombs can do damage, but their basic version does so little that I don't think that's a viable alternative for something like a Lionel. Or Link could steal an enemy's weapon with a special time dodge or parry if he currently has no weapons available, or Nintendo could have been smarter about their encounter designs. This isn't a problem with enemy encampments because you can steal their weapons. The Hinox also solves this problem with the amazing inclusion of weapons still embedded in its body or hanging on its neck as trophies from adventurers it killed in the past. You can steal these weapons in the fight, meaning the encounter itself is supplying you with the means to beat it if you're smart or quick enough, which I think is a really compelling idea. Adding this dodge that you could pick up the spear and there you go, you have a weapon that could be balanced around this fight that you had to earn for yourself, problem solved. Guardian enemies...
I don't know where his rant is in this video, but he goes over the idea of the Lionel, which is like an enemy that you are physically capable of defeating, but that your inventory doesn't allow for. Which, given that Morrowind is like an RPG a lot more than it's an action game, would definitely run into that issue, because like, the combat isn't intelligent in this game. You run up and whack things. You can kind of exaggerate it a bit, but at the end of the day, you're whacking things, right? So it's like, if you introduce the fact that you can hit anything guaranteed, it introduces scenarios where once you understand how to kite an enemy, you would just run up to an enemy and kite it and take 2 minutes to beat it. And then people would complain about that. Now, I feel like the solution is more so to make it so that enemies can't be kited. That would be an adjustment you would do in the speed balancing as well, is to make high-end enemies actually able to keep up with you. And I also feel like just designing enemies to be too intelligent or like dangerous in general aspects to not be able to be kited. Like, an enemy that is physically able to be kited should have health regen in that game, right? So in like a sequel to Morrowind that uses magnitude as its RNG rolls as opposed to hit or miss, you could do like your slow, bulky tank guy, but his gimmick should be health regen, enough to offset like starting weapon damage, right? So that even if you can infinitely attack him without being damaged, he just regens it off. Or make weapon condition much more brittle for all weapons. Which I would go with that direction. If you had guaranteed hits and you were using magnitude rolls, I would go with like Oblivion durability to prevent that kind of kiting situation. I think that's one way around it.
On the other side of combat RNG is magic cast chance, which is very similar in using a stat check to determine whether or not you cast a spell. The reason I think people harp on this less is for a few reasons. First being that you can see the chance to cast, which makes it feel more fair.
I agree. Still agree. The fact that it hides the numbers from you on what your chance to hit with a weapon is pure obfuscation. It doesn't change anything about the mechanics, it just changes how much you are aware of. It's bullshit.
When I know the chance cast is 3%, I get less mad when it fails. Like, yeah, that's my fault for even trying. When I have 50 Longblade, using the bound longsword that fortifies my chance to hit, and I still miss, it feels terrible because I don't have a number to check and see if I got the 4% chance to miss, or if I'm flipping a coin at 50% and it's more fair that I didn't hit. Second, spells have out-of-combat utility. To paraphrase Waffle Tabernacle, failing to hit and roll in combat doesn't mean I'm going to stop trying to fight and meditate or something. It just means I'm going to die.
Okay, I still agree with that, but I think the point is that if you're getting too many misses and you're dying, you're just not ready for the area. But I do agree that the lack of an RNG number for your melee attacks is just horrible feedback. There's no real excuse for it either, because the game can dynamically check what your chance to do is, like with the spells. So it's clearly possible. I think a way simpler way to do it would just be to have it be so that you can check what your chance to hit is on the weapon tooltip, and it's calculated based off of neutral enemy evasion. And then just have different enemies have distinct levels of evasion. Which, like, I would still want there to be enemies who can dodge. Like, I would still want there to be hit chance for certain enemy types. Like, I think that there should be perks for your character that allow you to have dodge chances. And that should be a spell effect, like Sanctuary, but just, like, actually useful instead of being, like, Magicka inefficient. Or certain enemy types, like animals. So, like, wolves should be more agile, for instance, whereas, like, maybe something like a goblin or a skeleton just doesn't try to dodge at all, you know? There's a lot of ways to do that differently. But yeah, not showing you your chance to hit with a melee weapon is purely bad. Thumbs down.
With spells, however, failing a cast usually has lesser repercussions, just so you can just rest it, get your magic back, or go do something else. As an example, I usually carry lockpicks until I have a 100% chance to cast an open 50 spell, which makes the skill progression convenient and powerful while the low RNG rolls don't necessarily keep me from solving most locks with an alternate method. Really, the only area low cast chance screws...
This is when I was still using Slow Fall as a constant effect instead of just switching to a spell. It hurts your jump chance so much, man. This is like an in-game character and I had like no height on that jump. That's why Slow Fall sucks as an enchantment. You have to do some really crazy jumps to get any height with Slow Fall. It sucks. That's not relevant, but it's more interesting than what I was talking about. Yeah, if you try to hybridize, you can't rely on whatever you tagged as a miner. It sucks. I don't get into that in this video because this video is more trying to be normie friendly, and it's more shallow. I have no fucking clue what the point of miner skills are in this game. Like, all they end up feeling like they do is that they just allow you to level up more. In, like, the technical sense, right? But, like, I can't stress enough that I've done... Let me pull up the character planner. Okay, woman, high elf, apprentice, magic, intwill, conjuration, mysticism, restoration, illusion, enchant, alchemy, unarmored, short blade. This is the mage class. It's just reorganized so that you have different majors and minors. I can't stress enough. I've done this build, right? And the highest I've ever seen one of these skills is like 70, 80, 90, right? So that's fair. A little bit behind melee, because I've gotten melee characters to 100 and like their weapon skill, right? But you know, 80 to 100, that's pretty good. And that's consistent too. It's like all of these are like 70 to 80. So like starting in their 40s and 30s, that's about level 40. With the exception of illusion that you can train yourself with custom spells, the highest I've ever gotten one of these without going to a trainer is I think I got alchemy from 30 to 47. And none of these, except for illusion, were actually useful from the start. Unarmored is not... It's just not mechanically inside of itself strong enough to be useful as a miner. You still fail a lot with alchemy. You can't enchant anything with enchant. You have no charge on enchant. You have a decent amount of charge on enchant with what it starts with, but you still need it higher. I couldn't hit things with short blade even when bound because it's 15. And they didn't level because I couldn't use them, and when I did use them, they didn't level. So I have no clue what the fuck miner skills are for in this game. I think they're there literally to be trained, so that your overall character level can be higher. The highest I've ever gotten organically is 40. And that's from like long plays that do literally everything in the game. Like every Daedric quest, all factions, DLC. You know, constantly training major magical skills that you can train and get extra levels in. I have no clue what the point of miners is. What's this character's max level? This doesn't even tell you your max level. The numbers are too spread out. I'm not going to do it. Is there a Morrowind max level calculator? Highest stat classes. This is kind of interesting. Oh, they use their own terms, so this isn't really useful. Gondolier. Yeah, okay, this is not useful at all. It's not helpful. I have no idea what the max level is on this, but if you cut this out, that's like, I think, a little bit more than half your levels. So, like, this character's max level would be, like, a little bit below Oblivion, so, like, about 40, yeah. So it almost feels like the minor skills exist just so that you can train them if you hit like a leveling wall. Like if you were to instead do a build where you tagged like a long blade, it feels like if you then, because you know you didn't know what you were doing, so you just tagged like fucking, I don't know, acrobatics. So you just go train acrobatics and gain a character level. It feels like that's what minor skills are for. Because they're so fucking unusable at the start of the game. Then unless they have like a passive effect, like athletics, tagging them almost feels worthless. Like, what skills can you tag that have actual effects on gameplay from the start? Athletics, acrobatics, enchant. And we're not being specific to characters here, obviously. That doesn't change anything. Mercantile? That's about it, isn't it? So I guess you would just tag these because they're all useful. They all have like an inherent use that you can notice from them being tagged. But even then, I've tagged enchant on like non-mage characters and it didn't really help that much. So it's more like it only works if your character has enchant as a skill like high elves do. Whereas you feel these three, even as minors. I really don't understand minor skills. I'm not asking for engagement. If you understand minor skills better than me, please tell me what I'm not getting. Because you tag your majors as things that you use, and then your minors as like things to fill out your class. Like the best use I found for them is the mage build. If you just tag casting skills, all magic skills, we've got all 5s in warrior and all 5 in stealth, so it makes training easier from like a meta perspective. This is I'm begging, please help me understand minor skills, not minors. I'm a YouTube streamer, not a Twitch streamer.
Over is teleportation. Since even mysticism talented races majoring in it at class creation start with less than 100% chance to cast, which can...
I understand why. It has combat application. Like we went over earlier. So I kind of understand it not being reliable. Even if you're like an Argonian or a Dunmer that's a mage that starts with a tagged, I kind of understand.
Slow you down while traversing areas like the vet. 80% sounds fine unless you've played Pokemon and you understand how important 100% really is. 3. If a spell is cast successfully, the effect is guaranteed. They could have very easily added a hit chance after cast chance for mages, but they didn't, and I'm so grateful for that. Fine.
That would probably be too much, honestly. I mean, they sort of have that. They have willpower. Like, if your willpower is high enough, you resist certain magical effects, like paralysis, and I think... actually, that's the only one I know. But, I like the idea. I mean, it says willpower helps you resist magic. It would be kind of cool if your willpower did give you, like, a very minuscule chance to just avoid magic damage. Or if it was, like, a percentile reduction, like... I don't know, maybe at 100 willpower you just take 10 less magic damage, like magnitude of anything. It's not that overpowered. Most characters aren't going to get their willpower past like 140. Like 14% isn't too crazy.
Finally, we have out-of-combat RNG. Things like enchanting items, creating potions, repairing gear, picking locks, smooth-talking NPCs, haggling, picking pockets, and sneaking are all determined by RNG rolls.
God, my goal is to be able to look as stupid as him and still get Kirara.
The RNG rolls in combat are necessary to prevent rushing the best gears, and RNG on spells is very clearly defined and easy enough to understand and improve. I will not try to defend this as it's just mostly tedious. While I can understand your magic goal of a set number of RNG rolls you can use before you run out, having alchemy ingredients and sorting through the clunky potion making UI to finally find good ingredients before mixing them together, just to see all 5 of the potions fail.
See, the problem, you fucking idiot, is that you tried to actually organically level your alchemy. That's the problem. You just go to a trainer. Just ignore it. Or just bulk buy items that you know have the same effect. But you trying to actually organically level alchemy like this is fucking awful. That's why I stopped doing it.
Just does not feel good ever. While Oblivion does have some degree of skill gating, as some spells need a skill check to cast or enchanted gear can't be repaired until 50, the frustratingly low chance to perform actions below skill level 20 or so ends up somehow feeling worse than just being told to get to 25 before you do it. Now I try this.
It's a phenomena. It's like when something is so low, but it's not zero. It's like it's worse. I think like a lot of a sentiment that you've probably heard that's like more normal and circulated is like, from experience I've heard servers that I worked with like in food service say like they found like change to be insulting. Now obviously, you know, it's your fault, but I kind of understand it, like, because like some of those servers got like tipped in tens, you know, like it almost feels like at a certain point, like if you got tipped in pennies and nickels, like that would almost be more insulting than just getting stiffed. And that's kind of what I mean here, is like I would rather just be told like you cannot use this weapon than to pick up a short blade and try to roll like literally 7% rolls over and over. That's how bad your RNG can get at skill level 5, is like literally the single digit percentiles to hit. That's also why if you were going to switch to like magnitude rolls, maybe just make it so that panelatively super low rolls literally just don't result in damage. I don't know, just something other than you technically can try, but
somehow feeling worse than just being told to get to 25 before you do it. Now I tried as hard as I could to be
25 is generous. Depends on the skill. Most skills realistically need to get to like 40 or 50 before they feel not ass. And even then you're still missing. Combat skills, I would say, depends on your agility, but you need to be at least 50. Everything else is out of combat, so you can probably get away with it at about 30. But, yeah.
Very apologetic to RNG, but I do honestly hate it.
I have, yeah. You'd be surprised how many people play Morrowind and just say, like, RNG bad. I understand its place. That's one of the big things that a lot of people who criticize Morrowind don't do, or just don't understand, is they don't understand the importance of what RNG does for Morrowind as it exists. They just don't like it. Which I agree with. I don't like it. You know. A lot of things I don't like, but like you have to understand why it's the way it is if you want to change it.
Most people who complain just say Oblivion and Skyrim are fine, but in combat in those games of vanilla are pretty bad, and honestly worse than Morrowind overall. My suggestion to fix RNG in the sequel to Morrowind we never got would be bonus RNG, where there is a bare minimum progress to be had, with the RNG acting as a reward for investment on top of a baseline progression.
Yeah, I think the magnitude idea is better. That would be interesting. If you just did literally flatline 1% damage, and from there all your rolls are additive to it, maybe make it so that your weapon skill determines how high that roll is, and then strength is like still a multiplier on top of it. So like for like a Daedric Katana, you have the range of like 5 to 60. Oh, and that would be like New Vegas weapons, right? With like the weapon requirements, you could figure out a way to like tier all the weapons so they have different skill requirements, or based on the type. Like that could also be organic. Is like things like daggers and swords should be more intuitive. Like short swords and like long swords and broadswords should all be like way more intuitive than like a spear or like a katana or I guess even a dagger by comparison, or an axe. Having different skill requirements that could also make something like Spear more balanced by its range, is like the fact that it would have a higher initial skill requirement to start performing at all, because spears inherently require much more skill than like picking up a mace and just beating the hell out of someone. That would be interesting. Man, I love speculating on ways to improve Morrowind. Just anything other than just hit miss. Please.
Rather than the necessity for even the bare minimum. Take weapon skills, which already have variable damages based on the type of attack performed. With an RNG roll, it could allow your attack to either do baseline damage, add 2 of the damage numbers, or all 3, which would end up making most weapons devastating in the current game balance.
Yeah, the enchantment and magic ranges could also be used for magnitude, so like the skill isn't how well you cast it, it's how consistently you cast a higher variation of it. Which, like, I guess if you were to take rid of failed at cast chance, you would have to go back to skill gating from like Oblivion. Or you could maybe do like a Skyrim system where you could always try, but it's not likely and it's extremely magicka inefficient.
With the RNG ending up in a place, and with 100 in skill, agility, and luck,
Audio cut.
you're more likely to roll double, and with fortification past 100, you could end up in cases where you're likely to score triples, but not guaranteed, while preserving the early game balance, since you could have relatively low strength. Since you end up as a god anyways, having the enemies operate on this system would mean high-level enemies would high roll and obliterate you at low levels, while at higher levels you would retain the godhood Morrowind allows. For things like spells,
Yeah, both of those ideas work still within Morrowind's progression idea. Now, maybe you would have to tweak them more if you wanted to get more out of Morrowind's progression like I do, but I mean, if you're okay with the like 10 hours Morrowind gives you before your character is an unkillable god, then they're both better than what Morrowind does.
RNG could be cost. The stated cost is the bare minimum. But with improved skills, there could be a chance to reduce the cost by half or even a third, meaning you could build a battle plan to use a certain amount of ranged magic before you switch to touch spells, but because of your cool RNG roll, you could get lucky and spam target spells for longer, possibly eliminating the melee half of the fight, with the chances of an encounter like this at level 1 being really low to maintain the progression. Now, I'm not saying I can make a better game than Bethesda, that's not the intention of this. But people act like there's no alternative to what Morrowind's RNG is, while that's just not true.
I haven't played anything past Fallout 4. I might be able to design something better than Starfield. Like in the theoretical space of it, but I don't know programming. I'm willing to give myself more credit at this point. Yeah, additive RNG rolls to make it so that you have further cost reduction would be a cool mechanic. I'd rather go with magnitude as the RNG mechanic of it, though, thinking about it now. But that would be interesting, to make it so that maybe mages just inherently have more rolls than warriors do. And they have, like, a roll to reduce magnitude, but I think measuring magnitude by either skill level or willpower would be a lot better.
In a true sequel to Morrowind, there could have been an alternate system to the RNG like this, that makes it so that the RNG gives you a reward for advancing in skill. Everyone says hitting consistently is a reward, but I firmly disagree. When I experienced my first experiences in Morrowind, and I realized I could consistently hit things after like 10 or so hours, I didn't feel stronger. I felt like, oh, finally combat isn't as annoying now. Which is something I really
Oh, fucking finally, the door. Yeah, it's not rewarding. It's just ass. I don't know. It's not. Maybe it's just my dopamine receptor specifically, but it didn't feel rewarding. It just felt like, okay. I feel like what's like a good analogy? Oh, I feel like if you're getting your balls kicked and then someone stops kicking you in the balls, that's not rewarding. It's like relieving. Because, like, mischance is cock and ball torture, right? So it's not really like you've like earned something because you stopped missing. It's like, oh, the agony is over. Right? Which that's why I think that a lot of Morrowind fans are probably masochists. Because I think a part of you does have to be a little bit masochistic to get through, like, no Boots of Blinding Speed, no Redguard Longsword melee character, you know? Like, a part of you has to, part of you has to be a freak to get through vanilla, suboptimal Morrowind.
That getting out of that hole you started isn't fun or rewarding. It's a barrier to entry. Most other...
I mean, that's probably more the intention of it, is that it's a meta. It's like a filter. Why is she doing the Pixar wink? Look, I like freaks too. I'm not judging you. What the fuck is this inventory? Holy shit, I just looked at the fucking character. What am I carrying? Oh my god, what is this? 46 bloat, okay. Oh, those are ash salts because it comes before bone meal. Skooma pipe, you love to see it. Why do I have so many different potions? Why am I carrying like all of the items from like, I can tell that's based on where it is in the alphabetical order, that's Kanan Shadola's axe. Because that's after Orcish, so that's the Shadow Shield. Because it comes before 6th House Amulet, because of the H and I. Why am I carrying all this shit? Oh, and I like actually did the like Nerevarine trials. That's the teeth of the Urshalaku. Or teeth of the Ebenimsum, I think. Travel stained paint. Yeah, so I did Sunder. Why do I have pylons in my inventory? Was this before I realized the Master Index plugin existed? It might be. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, because it would go to the right, and that would be enough room for all of them. This inventory, man. Yeah, I guess as a medium armor character, you just kind of have to wear the Dark Brotherhood greaves. I mean, you could just go unarmored. But, like, fuck that.
Skills are rather simple to explain. The haggling system is like Oblivion's, but with RNG. Picking locks means attaching a pick or a probe like a dagger and attacking the lock. Really, only speechcraft
It is hilarious.
need to be delved into. Speechcraft has admiration, which seems to be dependent on the skill, personality, and luck. Threaten, which is dependent on your level. Taunt, which isn't worth explaining since it barely works.
It does work, but it's not useful.
And bribing like Oblivion in 10, 100, and 1000 volt increments. By the time you have the RNG numbers to roll an admiration, you either have the gold to bribe or spells to bypass the check anyways.
Yeah. Admiration is also weirdly more punishing the lower the disposition is. Which makes sense. But it's so disparaging to you as like a thief player, right? Because you like... It's really hard to start with everyone already having a positive disposition towards you. If you've already got them above like 60 or 70, an admiration is a lot more likely to succeed, but it's more likely to fail the lower it is. So it's like, if you start failing, you basically just like have to stop. And it's really bizarre. Bribes are also less effective the lower the disposition for some reason.
I could not provoke one NPC in over 100 plus hours of playing with a taunt, even at super high personality and speechcraft skills. Bribing 10 gold is...
It's because you weren't using bribes. The way that taunting works is that you taunt someone when they're at about 30 to 70, and when they fall below that, you bribe them to get them back up to that range, and then you taunt them again, and then you bribe them again. And then when you kill them, they drop all the gold you gave them. So it's still mercantile, not speechcraft.
Supposed to be the most cost-efficient way, but I have had multiple instances where just paying 100 up front got a result that over a dozen 10 gold bribes didn't. And 100 was consistent enough I never needed the 1000 option. Threat.
I've run into a few cases where you need 1,000. People like the leader, like the Raven Rock trader, and the Zainab Master Mercantile trainer. Need 1,000. They're too high level to work for 100. But if you use the DLC Fortify skill, Fortify Mercantile, 100 points for 2 seconds. 10 bribes work on everyone else. And bribes are determined in efficacy by Mercantile, but they level Speechcraft. But yeah, bribes are just better. And taunting sucks.
It is interesting since it depends on your level. Meaning at level 30 and beyond, I never saw this option fail. Meaning the entire system.
There's no NPCs that you can talk to that I think that are lower than level 30. Like that you can enter disposition, that you can have a disposition with. I might be wrong. There might be like initially hostile enemies you can calm that are higher level than 30, but I don't think so.
Kind of falls apart at feeling like a speech system. But given that it's a common occurrence in quests, it does feel rewarding to threaten someone for an answer to show how strong your character has gotten. Or skip performing an errand by slipping the guy 100 gold, exposing how shallow these nationalist Dunmer really are. Enchanting is by far the most drastic change in this game compared to the later games, and it's better and worse for it. All items can be given spell enchantments, which can be used as spells. These have a charge cost, and all items hold charges based on the soul used to enchant. Meaning you can make gloves with a Fortify hand-to-hand effect, a curse that regenerates health, boots that let you jump higher, and weapons that conjure better weapons in a pinch. If you're the type of player who loves managing temporary effects, then the enchanting system is for you and allows for some of the most powerful characters in the game. However, I don't like temporary effects, so I prefer constant enchantments, which you will likely not be putting into your gear, since only a few types of armor have the ability to hold these magnitudes of enchantment at all, and only Golden Saints can be reliably used to achieve this. With tons of meta knowledge, you might have some decent enchantments, but it leads to every character wearing their disco robes and bug homes for their enchant values.
The silhouette looks like the motherfucker's wearing Jinko jeans.
What is this inventory? God, so much shit. You don't need this. You have 300,000 gold. Just start selling for 5k at a time. Yeah, this is back when I used Mudcrab. He's not worth using unless you use a multi-mark mod. He's really not. The Creeper's good enough. What was I going? Oh, enchanting. Enchanting's bizarre. Enchanting yourself is like fucking pointless. It's like, if it's worth using, you're not gonna make it successfully. So it's like, what's the point? It's good they exist as vendors. I mean, it's like Daggerfall, where you can't make enchanted items yourself, but you can pay people for it, and it's like one of the most important things of like your build or whatever. Sort of the same here, but like honestly, you just don't need constant effects. Like by the time you can afford and use them, your character is done, right? You honestly just need to slap on constant effects to like really jack yourself up for the DLC. That's about it. Like being honest. But yeah, you just can't you cannot create effects yourself, which is a shame.
Even then, you just flat out cannot replicate the best artifacts found in-game anyways. Meaning enchanting will most likely end up applying to weapons, where cast on strike functions like it does in other games.
Yeah, one of the highest things you can do is like a Daedra Tower Shield at 225, which holds 45 points of an attribute or skill, and it's like that just does not compare to what you can find. Boots of Binding speed are 200. The Fist of Randolph totaled 40, so like at least you're better than that. But those are on gloves, which normally only hold a maximum of 40 with Ebony or Extravagant. The Helm of Arene Bearclaw is 80, so even on the shield you're not competing with it. You can't get the same value out of artifacts as you can for your own items, which is a shame. That's why it ends up being that the best build is always just to wear artifacts and then either be unarmored or fill it in with like Dark Brotherhood armor. Or like Ebony armor if you're heavy armor. It's kind of a shame. But it just leads to your clothes mostly just being like Fortify Intelligence, Fortify Willpower, Restore Health. it's really hard not to just do optimal stuff, because, like, it's really only if you don't plan on, I guess, using the Mantle of Woe or being a vampire, which, like, necessitate health regen. Like, I use a spell rebalancing mod, so it's fun to put, like, 100 points of feather on, like, an exquisite clothing piece. And, like, a good amount of telekinesis, and, like, water breathing and restore fatigue, you know, convenience things, but, like, by the time I can do that, I don't need to. It's just so that I don't have to cast a spell every time. But it's like, I don't really need it. It's just, like, convenient. Whereas, like, optimally, you should do restore health and then wear the Mantle of Woe, so you can, like, summon really powerful shit.
Two key distinctions. Enchanted items can be repaired by repair hammers from level 5 armorer skill, unlike Oblivion. And then enchanted items recharge over time, meaning spamming Azura Star isn't a necessity the instant you can temper enchanted items, unlike Skyrim.
It's balanced because your enchant skill determines how quickly you recharge things over time. That's why it's always worth training up enchanting at trainers, even if you're a melee character. Because you're going to get, like, a gold brand or something. You're going to get something that use Cast on Strike. And you still want that to be as good as possible because you're a melee fighter. That's why if I make that video on why melee has an arguably higher ceiling than Morrowind, I do have to acknowledge that you can't really be a pure warrior in the sense that you can be... that you can't really be pure classes in Morrowind. Like, it means you can't ever use anything enchanted, you can't ever jump, you can't ever buy or sell. You know, it gets too restrictive. It's like how my mage character still wore armor, you know? Like, it's not like they weren't allowed to. So, like, for a warrior, you still want enchant, even if it's a magical skill. So, it does kind of punish, like, the idea of being a pure brutish warrior. But I don't know. It's fine.
Meaning boosting enchant for literally only the purpose of getting more use out of a sword is completely viable.
Yep.
The only downside to enchanting is that done outside of a vendor, it caps out at 80% chance to create the item. Meaning if you try to put a cool effect on that super rare Daedric sword and Vex Soul and fail, screw you, they're gone. Using vendors then is expensive, and the more powerful enchantments I can make cost upwards of 140,000 gold. Overall, it forces you to accept temporary effects or play without enchantments until the very, very late game. Which is actually very cool, since timing temporary effects in battle is an IRL skill, and the constant effects can warp your character just as much, if not more, than the extra effect perk in Skyrim.
I disagree. It comes down to an issue that you can't really create items worth using Cast on Use that aren't very specifically tuned for your use. You can make a 1 point levitate for 10 points on a common amulet, a 1 point for 10 seconds on a common amulet, and a slow fall 1.1 second on a common amulet. But I think you need expensive for a jump amulet. But the money and enchant skill you would need to actually use useful stuff on Cast on Use make it kind of unviable to use instead of magic. I don't know how else to explain it. You would have to carry around like 40 different rings to like rely on them for your damage, or like cheese rush a pre-baked item that has a good one, like the vampiric ring. You can't make that. I'm almost certain you can't make that because of the enchant capacity of items. You might be able to make something pretty close with like the Daedric Tower Shield, but that's about it. And I get it. You know, you don't want them to be too overpowered, but like even I don't know, even like open 100 points is like crazy expensive, and enchantment demanding on like an amulet for Cast on Use. Like the Ring of Surroundings is something you probably can't even make yourself. Like the Ring of Khajiit is something you definitely can't make yourself. And I get it, they're artifacts, but like, it feels a little demotivating for the best stuff to be stuff you can't make if crafting it is supposed to be part of the skill. Like, it's kind of fine for like I guess it's more fine for like a weapon to just have better stats than what you can enchant, because it's like you can't make the weapon, but you can make the enchantment. So if the enchantment is better than what you can do, it starts to feel kind of like shit. Also, I love this Ordinator character. Ordinators look so cool. But I don't really know how else to put it. I probably didn't even make any sense there.
Armor is one of the only skills that isn't random and is more heavily determined by skill than other things. Meaning someone specialized in medium armor would get more use out of Bone Mold, the worst medium armor in the game, than the Dark Brotherhood armor, the second best light armor in the game. Nothing but praise here. Amazing. Incredible. Feel it good.
Absolutely incredible. Now, I've tried to think about what you could add on to that, because it's so barren. I thought about it, and maybe the lower your armor type, the higher of an evasion bonus you get. If you have evasion in your system, right? Like, maybe unarmored characters should get more evasion than light armor characters, and light more than medium, and medium more than heavy, right? That could be a way to do it. Because, like, if you can evade damage more often, you don't suffer as much the penalty of not having the armor. But then that reintroduces RNG into it that you weren't considering before. So it's like, it's as good as before, but with a possible benefit. Could be one way to go about it. And good, and you all? It's doing pretty good. I probably won't have as much to say on like the story this time. It's mostly the mechanics, because I've been playing it like fucking crazy.
On top of this comes more slots to put armor on, like pauldrons, greaves, and the ability to wear clothing under your armor and robes over it. While this destroys the game balance unarmored offers by making it not only the weakest, but also the lowest enchant value, if you...
Yeah, unarmored is unfortunate in this game. And it sucks because they took it out after this. There's no reason to be I mean, there's technically a slight reason to be unarmored in Oblivion and Skyrim, but not really. For being honest. Like, the 5% spell effectiveness matters for illusion and shield, and that's about it. And then, like, mage armor is worse than armor, so... Yikes, Rudy. Hininu Isoro. Yeah, I use name generators for my characters. All the Dark Elf ones end up sounding super weeby. What is a spell catalog? Why do I have every spell effect? Get that shit off the screen.
feels so good to have clothes on under your armor and stack all of the effects, especially considering that clothing has higher enchant values than armor, meaning you can choose armor mainly for protection and clothing for boosts. Attributes
yes. It's so epic. It means that if you want like that 60 enchant value thing to like restore health, you don't have to like be like, well, guess I'm switching to ebony. Like, ebony is just a bonus enchant on top of your clothes. The fact that ebony can hold enchant value is like balanced around the fact that A, it's not the strongest armor. It's weaker than her hand's armor, and I think Daedric, and I think it's actually weaker than something else. Ebony armor Morrowind. It doesn't say if it's actually the best. Best heavy armor in Morrowind. Offer up to 266 armor rating. Better than medium at 145 and light armor at 168. Yeah, we're looking at all artifacts and Daedric. So you've also got the fact that a lot of artifacts are just better than Ebony, so your own custom Ebony might fulfill a certain niche for you. But in general, your Ebony is like specifically useful because you can put a custom enchantment on it, not because of the enchantment value itself. Because you cannot replicate Iadon's ward or the Fist of Randagolf with Ebony. It's not happening.
And by affecting everything you do in some way, and God, with the special system in New Vegas, I gotta say, I just love attributes. Fuck the color juice from Skyrim. All my homies hate the juice. Increasing attributes works exactly
Based. What's interesting too is that Elder Scrolls attributes and special, like I said earlier, are like diametric opposites. Like the special stats in not New Vegas, because New Vegas is easy peasy, lemon squeezy. But like in the Fallout idea, outside of like I don't even know. Well, the point is more that you build your special at the start, and then it doesn't just level. Like you can increase it with perks, but you have to. But you're more so supposed to build your character and then use those bonuses to play the game. Whereas you're supposed to play the game and then earn bonuses for your attributes in Elder Scrolls. I like both approaches. I actually think that the special system might work in Elder Scrolls. Like, Daggerfall sort of did this, actually. I actually got through the character creator in Daggerfall. It was just that I couldn't control my character well, so I gave up. But Daggerfall, I don't feel like looking it up. Daggerfall lets you take away points from certain attributes and give them to others, but then still uses the Elder Scrolls leveling up system, which I think is a good compromise. I think your attributes can range from 25 to 75, or is it 10? I think it's 10 to 75. And I like that a lot as an idea. That would be really cool for Morrowind.
exactly like it does in Oblivion, with one difference, being that there are 10 skills that affect your leveling instead of 7, meaning your character levels for longer. If you know Oblivion, you might be like really...
Imported cheese, Twinkie. Oh, that's a song maker. They do free for profit beats. Lonks Takes, Thunder God, Noodles, Penguin, Charlie, Glitch City. Glitch City is always on there because they're alive. I kind of want to unsubscribe because it's annoying, but shout out to Glitch City. They make good free to use music. I'm not sure if it's a she or they. I'm just gonna say they. I haven't watched Imported Cheese in a while. I've had him. I've had some of his mannerisms stuck in my head though. Toxic orb, son. It regenerates in response to toxic trauma. Slug Mulganus. I'll put you down myself. I've had a lot of his things stuck in my head lately.
Scared hearing that, but don't worry. Morrowind actually gets the leveling system right. Since enemies don't scale very much, it means even a character choosing to only gain 3 attributes per level can still keep up by focusing...
What did I emphasize there?
Even a character choosing to only gain 3...
Can you beat Oblivion while leveling normally? Yeah. Look, it really is not the leveling system in Oblivion that's at fault. The attributes work fine. It's that the level scaling is fucking... Ugh. Something else, man. The reason it's so inexcusable too is that your attributes are capped in Oblivion, so like even doing some crazy shit to get high strength doesn't work in Oblivion. Same way it does in Morrowind. Like in Morrowind, if you play on high difficulty, your hits might feel weak, but you can also get your strength to 150 by the end game and start like two-shotting tough enemies. Like, that's not possible in Oblivion, and it's like an intentionally downgraded design because Oblivion is the sequel, so it's kind of weird.
Attributes per level can still keep up by focusing on their class.
As long as you have a character with more than 50 strength, which a lot of characters can start with, then strength from 51 to 100 for combat is actually a bonus, not required for damage like in Oblivion. Dirty leveling at 100 to 100 at level 50 would have a negligible detriment on normal difficulty. Yeah, absolutely. Like, the Fist of Randolph is 20 points of strength. That's 4 optimal levels. It's just for playing the game. As long as you're not playing on the highest difficulty, and as long as you're not, like, intentionally sabotaging your character build, you're fine. And it's because Morrowind follows the New Vegas idea that, like, the game should be easy enough that the worst build can do it. So it just makes it so that all builds are viable and certain builds are, like, overpowered. Right? The game is completely doable, it's just that it's annoying if you build a suboptimal build because you miss a lot. But on normal difficulty, absolutely, you can do anything you want. Hand-to-hand thrown weapons build is doable on normal. It's really fun, too. That was one of the funnest builds I've done in a while, was I did a Khajiit that only used their bare hands and, like, throwing stars.
Skills. Unlike Oblivion, where a character that gets 15 attributes per level can still end up weaker than the enemies around them.
I did not realize until I went through Patrician's Skyrim workstream series that this exact footage I clipped from Willow's video games is this iconic. It's because it so succinctly puts together the point, because I think the guy
Still keep up by focusing on their class skills. Unlike
he's got Umbra
Oblivion, where a character that gets 15
and a glass shield. So presumably if this is a light armor character, this is like the peak of your character. And he's fighting a Daedroth and a guy in Daedric armor and he's getting fucked up. A Dremora, yeah.
15 attributes per level can still end up weaker than the enemies around them. LOL. Instead of needing those...
Yeah, he's in full glass. So this is essentially like the best version of his character. And he's getting fucking gangbanged by like 2 enemies.
To keep up, they are actually bonuses that feel good and rewarding. And due to trainers having no limits on their training per level, you can power level a skill you don't use like hand to hand to get +5 speed in that level. Meaning once you start earning more gold, you can power level to a degree.
Her eyes were closed for a second. I simply do not see it.
Cuts back on the tedious grinding that comes with trying to get +5 attributes like in Oblivion with spellcasting. Not to mention that every attribute is actually useful for even more reasons than in Oblivion. Personality is like the mean dump stat of RPGs, and while it is unquestionably the worst attribute, it is still incredibly useful to have at high values. And
in the process of streaming Morrowind, I have noticed that every time I go to train my skills, I usually lose people that aren't, like, on the channel for, like, to stay. Like, so when you stream, you have people that are, like, recurring viewers, and then you have people that just join to see what your stream's about. And I've noticed, guaranteed, that people that just see what the stream is, to see what it is, will leave if you start doing training for your level, to, like, get attribute bonuses. Not what I just did there. We're talking to go do 10 levels in sneak for agility, and 10 levels in acrobatics for strength. That filters people. Right? And people actually think it's a good thing that you can't do that in Oblivion. No, what's a better one? But they think standing in a corner in Oblivion and using your jazz hands to level up Conjuration for literally 10 minutes sometimes is better. You know what I mean? I don't understand the like weird thing non-Morrowind fans have against training in Morrowind. I guess it's not like visually interesting. Like you're not seeing a pair of titties on your screen. I'm assuming it's a phone, right? You're not seeing titties. You're not on Twitter, so you're not seeing porn. It's not Skyrim, so you're not seeing a dragon make the screen shake, even though you're about to like two-shot it. Like, I get it's not visually stimulating, but it's like, is it really worse than Oblivion to train? Like, I don't know. I would rather be able to spend like 20 seconds getting perfect attributes, which is balanced out by my mercantile skill and gold reserves, than grind skills in Oblivion, because you can only do 5 levels, 5 training sessions a level.
Especially to start with a higher personality like how Imperials do. It will actually make the game noticeably easier.
Yeah. I made a Imperial girl, and I named her Delphine. Then I gave her blonde hair, and I started her off with 85 personality and used the bitter cup to get 100 personality out the gate. And it was fun. There's a lot of quests you can just walk up to and solve just by talking to people. But, like, it is fun. Now, granted, it's still weaker than other starts, but, you know, it's fun. It's actually powerful.
Why walk when you can ride?
With baseline mechanics over, what good would they be if the game didn't challenge those stats with good quests and factions, right? To get this out of the way, most quests in Morrowind are dookie. And realistically, a quest is going to tell you to go somewhere to get something, kill someone, talk to someone, or escort someone.
I got used to 75 FOV again. I can't stand this wide FOV, like, in playback. Yeah. So, like, I don't do a good job of explaining this, but the reason Morrowind's quests work the first time you do them is because of the fact that figuring out where to go and who specifically to talk to is about the exploration inside of the game, which I don't necessarily enjoy. I'm kind of learning that by playing Tamriel Rebuilt. I don't really like Morrowind's inherent quest design. Like, now that I'm playing the same quest, like design philosophy, but in a different area, I'm coming to realize I just don't like the first experience of Morrowind, which I think is actually why some people play Morrowind once or twice and then say that they've gotten their fill of it, and some people can't really get into it until they have, like, autistic encyclopedic knowledge of everything in the game to where they don't have to learn it again. And I think I fall into that second camp. Like, someone like, I think, Patrician will probably reach a point one day where he doesn't want to play it ever again because he solved it, right? But on the other hand, it's so much more fun to me now that I know what to do, and changing my characters to reach different points at different speeds is the interesting part. Not that I have to find some dick-ass named Hebian Plebo in the foreign quarter of Vivek, and that's all I'm told. And then I have to go talk to someone, and they go, oh, he's downstairs. And then you go downstairs, and there's like 40 doors, so you have to go in each one. You know, like, that's not really the part I like, you know. I more so like when I get to him, and he has like a disposition check that I either need to use bribes on, or I need to raise him up, or maybe if I have a certain item, he'd like it, right? Like, I just found out recently that in the main quest, Hasor Zain Zubani, he needs those books, and you can just have the books ready, and he just responds, because, like, that's usually how the quest design is. But if you raise him up, or if you're the leader of the Thieves Guild, he'll like you enough that he just goes, oh, you're asking what I would think of as a thoughtful gift. That's very considerate of you, and he just tells you. But nothing indicates that's an option. I found it by accident because I was the leader of the Thieves Guild, and he liked me enough, and I forgot to go get the book. So, I don't actually think I like Morrowind's quest design, to be honest. The world exploration was kind of fun once I had the Boots of Blinding Speed, but once I memorized the map, that obviously disappeared. But it's kind of completely... But that's the thing, right? So inside of Morrowind, certain people get enjoyment out of the experience of playing Morrowind for the first time, and some people get their fun out of the experience of gamifying Morrowind on consecutive playthroughs. Sort of like how some people really love Breath of the Wild because of how insanely good their first experience was with the game. Whereas I think the game has aged pretty poorly because it's really difficult to replay and get even remotely as good of an experience out of, right? So that's sort of another way to look at Morrowind as an experience versus Morrowind as a game. I'm not smart enough, I think, to make a full video on that idea, but that is something I think about a lot when I do gaming stuff in Morrowind that obviously feels very gamey in like a dicking around with it, and it makes me wonder if that's something I could pursue as a video topic. But that gets into like a lot of different areas of like media consumption in general. I mean, that gets into the idea of like, are movies experiences or films? Like, you get into a lot of topics when you get into that, and that's like too big, I think, because like I hate editing. So like, not only would I have to like do an insane amount of research for that topic, I would have to like record and edit a ton down. And I don't think I would enjoy that process enough to actually pursue it. But that is something I'm interested in. And no one else is making that kind of discussion on Morrowind about the experience versus the game. Because I actually hate the experience of Morrowind. That's why I want a true sequel, so that the experience part is better. And the game is better, right? But there are people who think like the game of Morrowind is just okay, but that the initial experience is peak. I kind of wonder what those people are like. I don't know. Because I understand it with Breath of the Wild. Like, I'm on that camp for Breath of the Wild. My first Breath of the Wild experience was like, I don't want to say life-changing, but like in terms of how I look at games, it did change my perspective permanently, because now I fully understand that some games are experiences more than games. And that's completely valid. Because I used to be really chuddy about it, right? I used to be like, if you can't replay a game, it's worthless. But it's like, I certainly think replayability is important, but like Breath of the Wild convinced me that like, there are games that maybe you just don't need to replay, but that one experience is good enough. You know, like, we're gonna die. Maybe you can just have a few one-offs before you go. So like, I don't know. That was a whole lot of nothing.
However, the reason Morrowind's quests work in general is how you accomplish this. When someone tells you to go somewhere, there isn't a map marker on screen.
Yeah, like this one in the fake soul gem quest. They don't do this often enough. It's really weird that it's in the game at all.
You get written instructions telling you how to get there. Like when you're told to go to Caius, you're told the south wall in Valmora. No specific directions, so you have to ask or look around town to find the south wall. Then you ask around inside, and the guy says, go out.
Something I didn't mention here, or I might mention, I'm not sure of, is that the reason the quest works this way and you're told to ask around at the south wall is so that you're introduced to the Thieves Guild. Because, like, on the way to find Caius, you're introduced to the Thieves Guild. Caius then sends you to Hasfad at the Fighters Guild, and then Sharngrim Musgub at, the Mages Guild. And then the Thieves Guild will naturally intertwine you to House Laldu, which is in Balmora. And all the talk around the temple with Sharn will probably take you to the temple. And then Hulia introduces you to the idea of the Morag Tong being in Vivek. So it's kind of like also introducing you to like the early factions, which I think is pretty cool.
Take a right, take a left, and he's at the end. There are a few issues with this, like the fact that sometimes the written instructions are just like sort of wrong. And then the game...
What do I see here? I can actually buy the idea that this is on purpose, since data can be outdated or the person might have been misled. But there isn't really anything to intuit this other than the instructions being wrong. No character motives or ambushes if you go to the wrong place anyways. I am also aware Morrowind was written by multiple writers on a crunch, but we still have to judge what we have, 3. Yeah. You know where a really good opportunity to do this would have been, actually? There's like a quest in the East Empire Company where you're told to go find the guy. Because you have to get a report to him on time or else like you're going to get fired. And for some reason they actually tell you where he is. Like, I get how annoying it would be, but like it would make sense there for him to be like, why not go check over north if he was actually south, right? And then, like, in the future, you just know to invert whatever instructions he gets, but the first time it, like, fucks you over. And, like, the worst case is you just have to let a save, I guess. Or, they do this sometimes, actually. They'll just be like, our data's too old, so, like, we heard he was around Voss. But, when you go to find Rel's titty, for the Fighters Guild. There's his name, Riz Titty. When you go to find Riz Titty, they tell you that the last place he was heard around was Voss. So you go to Voss and ask the people there, and they're like, oh yeah, you went up north. So that kind of makes sense. It's weird that sometimes when you're being told to go find, like, Dwemer ruins, the instructions can be kind of vague. But then people always seem to know exactly where bandit people are. Like, logistically, right? Isn't that kind of weird? Like, Dwarven ruins have existed since the days that Vardenfell was Resdain. Why do people still not know the exact route to all Dwarven ruins on the island? But, like, dude, you need to fucking find Barnes Titius. Dude, he's in Sargon. Go to Margon and go exactly north. Like isn't this guy an outlaw? There's a lot of weird stuff in the instructions. There's also the fact that, like, the people who wrote instructions have, like, never heard of the words north, northeast. That's a way that you tell people, go a little bit more to the left than right when you go that way. And that would help so much for this game.
We'll say northeast, but it's basically just a straight line east. So you go diagonally on the map and waste like half an hour looking northeast, only for it to be like literally east. This happened especially in the Morag Tongrids that were out in the wild and on Solstheim.
Yeah, fuck these. I think the Morag Tong guy specifically, like, had to do a redraft or something, which is why a lot of those instructions are kind of rough.
Other issue is that sometimes the game just doesn't write this stuff down. Like, you accept the Befalla quest to go poison some dude, and the journal just says, I have agreed to help Befalla. Like, no shit, asshole. Where am I supposed to go? The final issue is that written instructions is that they're just sort of unnecessary. People hype them up to this weird degree, like, I can't wait until this sky baby learns there aren't floating map markers in real life. But the problem is that literally every smartphone, like the one you're using to watch this, comes with a GPS we can use to get a map marker to anywhere in the world. And even in universe, clairvoyance exists. It's literally a spell in the setting.
Yeah, this is retroactive, so, like, saying it, like, as if... Here's the thing, though. It's really not. It's like, future seeing was like a mystic... was like a thing of mystics. Uriel Septim was literally known for future sight. There's no reason that this can't just be... She looks so scared. There's no reason that you can't just add clairvoyance. Oh, I gotta stop. I'm gonna yank that out. Oh, it was a hangnail. I'm always scared of, like, if I pull a hangnail, that I'm gonna, like, rip it all the way up to, like, my elbow. And I'm gonna, like, scream in pain. Clairvoyance is really bad because it exists in games that have, like, linear design and map markers. Clairvoyance would be, like, useful in Morrowind. And I think I present in the thing that, like, it's not always useful.
Not to mention, half the locations you're supposed to use as reference, map markers for navigation, don't get marked on the map, even when you discover them, which leads to you having to find it a second time.
Yep.
So written instructions end up feeling very unnecessary and frustrating. But I will say that on rare occasion, they did feel good to use, which is why in a true sequel to Morrowind, I think the game should have written instructions, with clairvoyance available for quests where you're given direct instructions. As there are still quests that are intentionally vague, like the tax collector murder, or the Imperial Cult Oracle quest, where you can only get directions of the people who can help you, like you, or are alive, which are quests where clairvoyance wouldn't be able to help.
Exactly. Oh, nickisaneet is so intelligent. They're a genius. They're a neat-yes.
When you head to Balmora, you're told to take the Silkstrider, which is one of the few means of fast travel. See, old games didn't have fast travel, except for Daggerfall, but I'm a more open world, so we don't talk about that game. The fast travel system is cool for making the world believable and easy enough to figure out. You can take a Silkstrider to go from town to town, a guild guide to teleport between the Mages Guild halls, take a ship from port to port, teleport with the propylon indices between Dunmer strongholds, use the
You're really
and
not.
divine intervention spells to warp to the nearest religious symbols, or custom mark a location and recall to it with the respective spells. If you think about it for a bit, this sounds cool, but relatively early on I discovered the best place to mark, which is the Sadric Molar Docks.
Oh, how cringe. You play vanilla. The best place to mark is in Caldera Mages Guild, right in front of the guy who has the Master Index. From there, you can divine to Buckmoth, Almsivy to Aldrune. You can Almsivy to Balmora, and divine to Moonmoth. You can take the Index circuit from the Guild Guide to Telosero. From there, you can Almsivy to Moligmar and Divine Intervention to Sager's Mora, or you can Divine Intervention to Ebonheart, then Almsivy to Vivek. If you alternatively go to Fallen Sorrow, you can Divine Intervention straight to Sager's Mora. If you want to get to Nisses, then you go to Phalazmarian and you Divine Intervention to Nisses. What cities are left? All of those places have a boat port in their chains. If you want to get to Pelagiad, then you Almsivy to Balmora, take the Siltstrider to Satanin, and then Divine Intervention. So yeah, you have an optimal mark spot no matter what. However, the argument for no multi-mark is actually just that. How do you put this? It encourages you to not pick up as much shit, because you can technically mark someone and then just teleport straight to them with one mark, but you're not going to waste your mark on that. It also, but if you have multi-marked, then you just mark Creeper. Or you mark, like, the Raven Rock Trader. You know, you mark someone with a giant gold pull, and then you always go to them. It also, multi-mark actually lets you have a house. If you don't have a mark, you're never going to use a house. Just sell something to someone and buy it back when you need it. What else does multi-mark do? It's just too convenient to always have an extra mark for a dungeon. The ability to just set a mark anytime you feel like you're too weak for a dungeon really does warp how you play in kind of a bad way.
Since from here, you can take a boat, Almsivy to Moligmar for a Siltstrider, Divine Intervention to Wolverine Hall for the Guild Guide, or head west for the Dunmer Stronghold Fallen Sorrow, which starts the Index Circuit. I think the early game barrier works, but eventually it's almost purely tedious to recall, walk to a service, then travel again, and walk again until you're there.
It is. The problem is that there isn't really a middle of the line answer here, I don't think. I can't think of one. Daggerfall technically had an answer to this, didn't it? Where you said, when you created a recall spell, you chose where you recalled to. Because you only have one mark, but you can set recalls to as many places as you want, I think. That's kind of interesting, I guess. I don't know an actual solution to this, because, like, with multi-mark enabled, you just set up a mark to, like, a fast travel service in Creeper, and then you have, like, an extra mark. But, like, with no multi-mark, you spend a lot of fucking time walking, and it's fucking annoying.
However, I do think fast travel should be limited to towns and strongholds, as the feeling of figuring out how to efficiently reach your destination is legitimately very cool. At first, you might water walk on coasts to run into the least resistance, then you might levitate over hills in short bursts, then you might literally Hulk ultimate destruction for the PS2 jump over the map. This manual journeying also serves as a chance to see how strong you are by fighting cliff racers, which are the best enemy in the game. They're cute little pterodactyl guys who make funny little sounds and will fight even levitating or jumping characters. I'll say now that if you hate cliff racers, you hate Morrowind. Every single enemy behaves like cliff racers except for their speed, which includes slaughterfish, Nyx hounds, Ashmeader Dunmer, and all other sorts of beasts. If you hate how persistent the cliff racers are, You just don't like wild enemy encounters in this game.
I don't. I've come to realize I really don't like the overworld enemies in Morrowind. Because, like, walking somewhere and kind of enjoying it, and then and then fucking tap, tap, wah, wah. It's fucking, you know, you experience too many of them. You know, honestly, I think the worst part is that you can't rest in the overworld without getting attacked. That might be the worst. That might be the reason I hate it so much. Because, like, you usually rest when you're at low health anyways, right? So it's kind of like, fuck you. It's, like, really annoying.
Like, I don't know what to tell you, because they all boil down to some creature charging you and making a noise over and over relentlessly. Finally, when you make it to nickisaneet and stare at his anime-ass buff old man abs, you'll realize he doesn't have dialogue like the tutorial guards did. You do actually have to read in this game.
Read, nigga, read!
This is a rare Morrowind W, no buts. I can't stress enough that the journal, if it actually writes everything down, you can. I can't stress enough.
Oh, that's Radopalm though. On Twitter, living in my garage on YouTube. I love their clips. Are you serious? You can't be all goofy and legalize nuclear bombs without saying it's corn and pushing P. I don't remember all of them. That's one I distinctly remember. I love being a hero. I love being a hero. I love being a hero. What are the other ones I remember? Can't think of any off the top of my head.
If it actually writes everything down, means you can mostly just mash through the related quest dialogue and then check the journal to see what to actually do and where to go. Meaning memorization isn't even that necessary for the most part.
This is a case where I gave the game too much credit because I played on OpenMW. The quest dialogue being blue is an OpenMW thing. I think you can actually change the color setting with that, by the way. I want to figure out how to change it to pink. But, that's not vanilla behavior. In vanilla, I think it's just boldened. And you can ask about topics as much as you want. So you can know what to ask about, but the convenience of being able to just walk up to, like, a quest NPC, hit all the blue dialogue, and then walk off is not vanilla. So I did give the game too much credit here.
This would be fine, but on top of the fact that most of the guilds, and especially the main story, are worth getting invested in and reading, helps make the reading aspect not only tolerable, but enjoyable. And while I do certainly adore Wes Johnson and Dagoth,
Come, Nerevar, friend or traitor, come. Oh, please, Nerevar, spare me. Oh, dear me, forgive me, but I am enjoying this. I surrender. I surrender. Omnipotent.
Given Bethesda's voice acting quality in general,
Look strong. Come to Ambassador, and we get companion.
I don't think having to listen to all of the dialogue you're supposed to read would be very good, with a few notable exceptions. Yes, I'm Crashius Curio, but you can call me Uncle Crashius.
I'm gonna go get water and piss. So I'm gonna set it back to the start of Dagoth, and hopefully it'll be gone by the time I'm back.
There we go. Meaning memorization isn't even that necessary for the most part. This would be fine, but on top of the fact that most of the guilds, and especially the main story, are worth getting invested in and reading, helps make the reading aspect not only tolerable, but enjoyable. And while I do certainly adore Wes Johnson and Dagoth,
Come, Nerevar, friend or traitor, come. Oh, please, Nerevar, spare me. Oh, dear me, forgive me, but I am enjoying this. I surrender. I surrender. Omnipotent.
given Bethesda's voice acting quality in general,
Look strong. Come to Ambassador, and we get companion.
I don't think having to listen to all of the dialogue you're supposed to read would be very good, with a few notable exceptions. Yes, I'm Crassus Curio, but you can call me Uncle Crassus. Ah yes, that is my name, but it sounds like music when you say it. A Horador is a champion who leads by inspiration. He challenges opposing heroes in single combat. He goes on long, desperate quests. I'm so glad to see you again, Meat. All the counselors agreed? Splendid. I'm so happy for you. What an honor, but no more than you deserve, Pumpkin. And now I have a little treat for you. It's a belt given to the Hortator of House Lalu. Just snug it around that supple little waist now. I know you have important things to do, but don't be a stranger. Don't neglect poor, lonely Uncle Crassus, your devoted admirer. And since so much dialogue is necessary to understand the culture and geography of Vardenfell, trying to simply voice the dialogue already present would be a horrible solution due to budgeting and time. Really, I have tried to argue against the Morrow boomers and come up with solutions the whole video, but this doesn't need fixing. When you start the main quest for Caius, you'll be told to go join the factions and train before he gives you orders.
Yeah. The only way that you can really go more in depth on that is that like the sacrifices to gameplay to accommodate voice acting would be a net negative. I don't say that succinctly. I have a bad habit of like when I make something like this that's like for normal people, I have a bad habit of assuming the person is like fully understanding what I'm saying. Kind of do that in like the magic video I made. Because like the magic video isn't really like this. It's more definitive, it's more in depth. But I trust that you kind of get what I mean in that video. That video probably won't ever come out because I just don't want to get footage from Skyrim for it. If I ever have any like actual members that I can like see, I guess I'll upload it to members only. I think I have like one member, but I can't see who it is, so I don't even know if I do. It's kind of shady.
This is so nice since it gives an in-universe explanation as to how you can just ignore the main quest and encourages you to try the guilds, which in Balmora includes the Thieves, Fighters, and Mages guilds, as well as the Temple, House Nalu, and the Morag Tong. This gives each...
Why did I say Tong? Yeah, you get introduced to the idea of the Tong by the Tong Guild Hall. You just get told to go find the headquarters in Vivek. Which I guess finding the Tong is a part of joining it. Like nowadays, I don't really think of the Tong starting in Balmora, but I guess for a new player it is.
Archetypal character, one set of quests, as well as a great house to join. Setting up new characters to do a few quests in and around Balmora to earn some gold for training. Like in Oblivion and Skyrim, leveling skills is just as horrible in Morrowind, if not worse, due to the omnipresent RNG. It is circumvented by the training system. When you find a trainer, which are everywhere, you can train a skill to the level that matches the attribute. Meaning if you have 50 speed since you're a Dunmer, you can train unarmored to 50 since it's governed by speed. No training limit in between levels. Longblade, Sneak, Mysticism, you want it, it's yours, my friend. So long as you have enough gold. While the attribute cap for training does sometimes screw over a character who tags too many of their attribute skills as majors, which can leave you unable to train, there are ways around this, and having skills at 30 to 50 is totally doable for the first few quests. So if this system works so well, why do new players struggle so hard with getting their skills up early? Because the game...
Yeah. That is something that's unfortunate, because that actually does plague me to this day. I like refuse to tag spear, medium armor, and heavy armor because of their relationship with endurance. I don't know. It like irks me so bad. I guess technically you can just level them as majors and just level up, but it feels so cheap at that point.
It does not do a good job at explaining anything. Since this is the point in the main story where you decide to ignore the guilds or join one, either way you'll be told to do something other than talking to someone. And this is when new players put down the game. And you know what? I don't blame them. My first run made it to the egg poachers in the mine before I quit because I didn't understand what was happening. See, everything I explained before, The game doesn't really explain in blunt or forward language, and if a game is going to have as many moving parts as this, they need to be thoroughly explained to the player. Since I ran to the egg mine, I wasted my fatigue. Then I kept missing because of the hit chance RNG. Then my gear broke even though I was missing. Then the enemy's gear broke, so we both fought hand to hand and missed each other for 20 minutes until I decided to stop playing. Why did this scenario happen? Well, now I know it's because I wasted my fatigue, then used a low durability weapon I wasn't skilled in. But did the game ever say, hey, you only have 20% chance to hit? Or tell me what multiplier my fatigue was impacting that dice roll by? Or tell me that durability lowers even on a miss when my weapon broke? Or that attacks can miss in general even if the models intersect? No. The fact that there are a million pop-ups in the census office explaining how to open the menu kind of proves that the game could have explained more, and intentionally didn't. The lack of a visible hit chance percent in combat is also a deliberate decision, since the spells menu shows you your chance to cast, which actually does fluctuate depending on fatigue and silence, meaning the frustrating lack of feedback in combat is likely intentional. When you combine this with the low movement speeds and the fact that non-combat quests suck early on, most people don't make it past Balmora for a reason.
I mean, I already went over the combat feedback. Like, give me a fucking number.
The second type of quest you get besides killing things is item retrieval. How this is done can technically vary, but most of the time it boils down to walking somewhere and walking back. Or maybe there's a thievery type element introduced. The House Lalu quest in Balmora literally has you just walking to someone in Ald'ruhn and bringing the papers you get back. No personality check or anything. It only exists to further punish Beast Race characters, since you won't even get this quest or the reward since you need to wear a helmet you're given for one dialogue exchange. An example of a more nuanced fetch quest in the Thieves Guild quest to get a diamond for a bossy. She wants a diamond and points you to Nokaria's shop. There's one diamond on the table in front of her, one in her merchant inventory, and 3 locked in her chest upstairs. As far as a thief goes, these test the sneak, mercantile, and security skills, which allow you to choose an approach best suited to your highest skill. The only problem is that while this allowing you to use your stealth skills is cool, most mage characters can also accomplish this task. Magic is overpowered in Morrowind. To such an extent it introduces the dilemma of gameplay freedom versus the optimal path. Something YouTuber video essay optimize the fun out of their game. Magic in Morrowind is so powerful that it can invalidate entire skills and attributes. Take the Hibasi Diamond quest. A player with a Deus Eyes Open, a spell from the Alteration skill, could invalidate the option to lockpick. To buy the diamonds, a player could use a Fortify Personality spell from Restoration to bypass the Mercantile skill, or a Chameleon spell from the Illusion Tree could be used to bypass the Sneak skill. In a similar vein, a lot of chests are trapped with magical spells that will harm the player, which can be disabled using probes from the security skill. However, a mysticism mage could use telekinesis to get around this trap, since the trap only activates on touch. What this means is that knowing the spells Deus Eyes Opening and telekinesis and having access to a spellmaker invalidate the entire security skill. And these aren't difficult to find spells either. They're in Balmora, in a town you'll be sent to in the early stages of the main quest. Frenzy is another spell in an easily accessible town that essentially bypasses the taunt to fight part of the speechcraft system. And with DLC vendors like in Mournhold, which you will likely end up seeking out to stop the Dark Brotherhood attacks, you can get the Fortify skill effect, which due to how
I'm still using quick cast here. I actually don't know how to feel about the following with style. I kind of like quick cast. Because I really like the idea that in Daggerfall your speed impacts how quickly you do things, not just move. But it doesn't work on weapons, so I didn't like it because it made magic too disproportionately strong to weapons. But I did like that you could set how quickly you perform spells, your quick cast, based on your speed modifier. So you could still... What was it? If you selected a magic school, you could still switch to your jazz hands. But if you hit the switch button, it activated a quick cast. I liked that system quite a bit. But I just wanted to be able to swing weapons faster too, which is why I uninstalled it. That it was unnecessary.
Menu timing works can also invalidate the armor, alchemy, and enchanting skills by crafting 100 magnitude spells that last 1 or 2 seconds. Conjuration is also one of the stronger skills since bound weapons have a +10 skill modifier, and stats equal to Daedric, meaning you can almost ignore your character build and have one of the strongest weapons in your class available in Balmora, that you can use decently well at least. Since 15 is comparable to the 20 a 5 skill with a minor skill bonus would have. Levitate bypasses the acrobatic skill for dungeon crawling. Jump bypasses acrobatics with world traversal. And water walking bypasses the athletic skill in bodies of water. Restore attribute and cure disease can invalidate the religious altars, and there are areas only magic can do. Calming an NPC can allow you to raise their disposition so they're permanently friendly, which multiple of the master trainers in the game start off hostile. Fortifying an attribute
Do
skill
multiple
allows
of
you to
them?
train outside your attribute limit.
I only know of the guy in Indoranian, but I think also some of them are in hostile places, not necessarily that they're hostile. The Master Axe Trainer is in he's in one of the strongholds. He's surrounded by hostile people, but I'm pretty sure he's friendly.
Removing that barrier to progression. Restoring fatigue over time can effectively negate the running issue, and Sanctuary has a more direct impact on evasion than Agility, point for point. Resist Magicka is necessary for the Boots of Blinding Speed and easier to cast than finding or making potions in the early game, and weightless to carry around, meaning in a sense, it also helps solve the speed issue. While I'm saying this like it's a bad thing, I'm sort of split. There are alternatives if you never want to cast a spell once, but honestly it would make the entire game so much more tedious and inventory management focused that I could not imagine trying to play Morrowind without magic. And since magic can be custom crafted at the spellmaker and you can see the cast chance, it feels so good to improve a skill and check and see the number to cast go up over time. I just wanted to go over how OP magic is to highlight that if your character can hit things with a sword and can cast spells, there's only static high-level enemies stopping you from completing any quest in the game outside of Balmora. In this way, the flexibility...
Pretty much. That's why I was saying that the progression is so short. Because, like, essentially the early game is just getting to the point to where you can cast your things. Then you just need the survivability to fight high-level enemies. And then from there, if you're creative enough or cheesy enough, you can get through anything.
Ability on offer on any quest is basically up to you, which is incredible.
Okay, that was... I just sped it up because we just did magic, so there's no real value to be had there.
Ability on offer on any quest is basically up to you, which is incredible.
I love this fucking edit.
The main quest of Morrowind is where all of the good writing in the game, best dungeon designs, and interesting quests are. The first quest telling you to go join a guild and get stronger is so perfect as a start to allow your character to organically go do side quests and also make sense in-universe. You're a scrawny clown snatch who just managed to Morrowind and kinda sizes you up perfectly. From here, the next two quests force you to learn the written direction system in the Dwemer Ruin dungeon will teach most players about the concept of coming back to a ruin you couldn't explore, as Asfat Himbo Hollis will give you a key that opens a previously locked door, which with the randomly difficult placed dungeons that are just really tough, it helps organically tell you that some dungeons are just too tough, but that they'll still be there when you can meet the challenge. Caius even says something like this directly. Chef's kiss, man. Just impeccable. After this great...
He says, how do you know when a job you've been given is too tough? Well, measure up the task and the reward. If the task seems simple and the reward is high, you'll be facing a strong enemy. If the task sounds complicated and the pay little, you'll be doing menial work. He says something along those lines. I don't remember the quote. It is a good quote, though. I have not been inside of that dwarven ruin in forever. I forgot what the interior looked like.
Start, the game will send you to Vivek, and I have to say that I do like Vivek, but that it's a situation where I like more than I dislike. Really, Vivek is a problem to navigate due to the game's movement speed and lack of magic regeneration. As the city isn't so bad as you learn the design pattern of the cantons, and if you can always reset your location with Alm Simi intervention, you can't really get lost. But as it is in vanilla, you come here early and magic doesn't regenerate. So Vivek does fail, and is fairly criticized since when you have to come here, you won't be ready for it. But I still really like the canton system, and the way the gameplay mechanics tie into the character writing of Vivek himself, I think it's really well done.
My pronouns are they, them. Not because I'm non-binary, but because I'm literally two niggas.
Vivek is such an egomaniac that when Shiogora threw Bardal at Vivek, he stopped the meteor but left it above Vivek's temple as a monument to remind his subjects how powerful and worthy of fear he is. The cantons themselves are full of wanted criminals and the underworld's infested with cults, but it's up to the player as an agent of the guilds or temple to clean the city up. rather than the god Vivek, who literally lives here, which reinforces just how miserable and pathetically weak the Tribunal have become due to their war with Dagoth. The quest in Vivek asks for different solutions to their problems than the dungeon delving combat from before, just in case you beeline to the main story here, which I think is a nice touch. Something even cooler I like to go over is something called the back door, since technically you can start that quest here in Vivek right now, but realistically most players wouldn't know that they could or even know how. Vivek is inside his palace, which is locked at level 100 and trapped, which as we went over in the magic section, means you might be able to open this door the first time you visit Vivek. Inside Vivek's palace, he won't turn hostile and just says, and refuses to talk, but you can murder him here and now and take Redguard.
It's because more or less Vivek achieved Chim. And if I understand it right, he basically knows he's in a video game and that you can just save load. Which is so funny. It's so cool. It's funny and cool at the same time.
The artifact on his body to a character you would have met in the main story later, and get it fixed up to go straight after Sunder and Keeney, the weapons necessary to defeat Dagoth and end the game. See, in Morrowind, there are no essential characters. Besides Dagoth, any character can be walked up to and murdered, provided you have the skill to achieve this. Most people leave this out when talking about essential characters, but Vivek is not a pushover. Despite making fairly strong characters, he's a consistent challenge. Seeing as I dislike Vivek and Almalexia, it's incredibly satisfying to build a character strong enough to walk up, break into his throne room, and murder him for the item I need. Could you imagine if in Skyrim, a high-level Dragonborn could just walk up and kill Ulfric and end the Civil War in one day? Almost as if they were a legendary hero of terrible power and prophecy? Kinda makes you think. After this,
it's so funny. I genuinely think, and I've said this before on stream, I think the best solution to the Skyrim Civil War issue would just be... Let me get some music going. It would just be to make it so that the Civil War takes place like entirely from the Stormcloak's perspective. So as a faction, you like do the Dark Brotherhood option, right? You get like invited to join, but you can just join the Legion and go kill Ulfric and end it. You know, that would be so cool. Because if you had to get all the holds back from the Stormcloak side, that would actually give you a lot of opportunities for quests. I mean, I don't think they wanted to do anything that interesting with Skyrim's quests. Much more than like what ended up being done. But, you know, you give them the benefit of the doubt, right? But yeah, that would give the Stormcloaks a lot more opportunity to do things. And, it would make the Legion side more, I don't know, it would feel better as, like, the Dragonborn character. Because, like, I think that's the weird thing about Skyrim, is that, like, for as OP as the Dragonborn is supposed to be, it doesn't lean into it enough. Like, you can shout, but if you accidentally hit, like, a chicken, the entire city guard murders you, you know? But, like, then everyone sucks your cock for being able to shout. It's really bizarre.
You'll have to go find out where the Ashlander camps are and go to one, which will force you to actually journey out into the Ashlands. The Ashlanders of Morrowind are ultra-national, xenophobic tradcasts who worship the Narravarine prophecies and the Good Nature, the modern tribunal of Azura, Boethia, and Nephala. If you find the right guy, you can tell him to square up, but he recognizes you rock his shit and lets you talk to the boss, who makes you go to the Ursulaku burial caverns and fetch something for him. The caverns are a step up from Earthengand, and it uses water, height, and ghosts to force you to adapt, and afterwards, the Bonnie Mesa will tell you about the Narravarine prophecy. The Narravarine prophecy is one of my favorite aspects of the story. There are 7 trials the player would need to fulfill to be the...
I'm not really interested in the story. I want to hear what my thing about mods is. This is about where I think I say that, like, if you mod the game, it's better. And I want to know how I worded it, because I haven't watched this video in a bit.
Unfortunate. So, is Morrowind worth playing in 2024? I have to say no. All of the things I commented on are overwhelmingly worse to experience yourself. And the slow movement speed in early game in general are horrible if you're new to the game. Add on top of this that I played the game in OpenW, which is notably more stable than vanilla. And you'd be experiencing random crashes and bugs on top of the slow movement. You would be constantly retracing slow, tedious steps. I had a constant discussion where people would ask me on stream if I thought the game was worth getting into, and I had to say no, because I did not start enjoying my time with the game until about 10 hours in. which is completely asinine to ask of anyone.
Yeah, based. It's reasonable to ask for 10 hours of investment into some things, but like a game that you're supposed to be having fun with, I don't know.
10 hours is enough to watch the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, all seasons of Mob Psycho 100, a season of The Boys, play Sonic, play Ratchet and Clank game, read an arc of a fast-paced manga like Chainsaw Man or Jujutsu Kaisen, practice a skill, practice a hobby. I did find a wonder inside of Morrowind, but I forced myself through those 10 hours on stream and would never have done that on my own time. However, there is one reason I would recommend Morrowind to anyone with a PC that can play games on. Mods. Well, I do certainly think the base product needs to be taken into account, which is why the first run I did of Morrowind, roughly 20 hours, was almost completely vanilla besides Open and W. Because of that, I think Morrowind out of the box does not hold up, and that the good aspects of the game are overpowered by the bad ones.
I kind of regret that I'm advertising Project Tamriel here, considering I didn't end up liking it at all.
With mods, however, we can draw out that purely good energy and end up with something incredible. I complained about the movement speed, but with mods, I can add in the Pants of Binding speed and use console commands for potions and magicka resistance. And nickisaneet.
Here we go!
Yeah, console commands. I abuse this now. I just add the boots and 5 potions of resistance at the start.
Let's go!
I've done the Caldera Pemini journey too many fucking times.
Meaning, aside from Crashier's Curio ogling our thighs, we can be fast the entire game. Fatigue draining from running is kind of poorly implemented, so I can just remove that.
I don't anymore. I don't touch fatigue at all. This is something that I don't communicate well in the video, so I think, which considering that's like the thesis of the video, this is like the thesis statement. Whoa, is like the title, right? The question. This is the important part. I do a very bad job of explaining it. The way that I would word this now is that I think if you're the kind of person that couldn't handle Morrowind, which I think a lot of people are, I barely handled it, right? Use mods like training wheels. Like, add just something to the game that gives you just a little bit more leeway into the game. Stamina's a big one. Just turn off stamina from running so that you can run everywhere. Another one is magic regen. I used magic regen for a long time. I'm thinking about adding it back in. Multi-mark is a very good one. And using a mod for the for the Pants of Binding Speed for beast races is a good one too. Just do stuff that's going to make the game more enjoyable, but not necessarily completely remove something. I don't think even for like training wheel mods, I don't even think you should touch, like, you should remove hit chance. That's too important in Morrowind. But like fatigue, I think maybe learning, I do think that you should learn how to manage your fatigue, but you still lose it when you swing. You can still have it drained. You still lose it when you jump. Just do things that like help ease you into it. Notably, speed and like magicka regen are the ones that I would recommend to new players. But this is only I only really don't like this segment now because I didn't word it that way that you should use training wheels to get into Morrowind. Because God, you look at this and I'm using like multi-mark and I've got like the right to wear Ordinator armor and I've got like the Imperial Legion badge and like I've got like no fatigue running and I've got like all this shit, right? And like if you look at my OpenMW now, it is like pretty much Project Tamriel, the hit chance, extra hotkeys, hair options, 3 different mods for that. The Pants of Blinding Speed and the Merchant reset, and then Vampire hiders. Spell rebalance. It's very minimal. I used to have all this and like Magicka regen and multi-mark and the Imperial Legion badge and right to wear Ordinator armor and expansion delay. I used to have a lot. And over time, I've like gradually whittled down my mod list. I'm gonna uninstall Project Tamriel after I finish this playthrough because it just detriments the game. Because it makes the base game run like shit and stunts your progress in all of the guilds. For some cool spells, arguably, and ebony weeb weapons, which I can just mod in anyways.
Magicka not regenerating when you wait slows down the pace of areas like the Vec, so I added in fair Magicka regeneration. No hit chance percentage on weapons is frustrating, so I added a hit chance UI that tells me what percent chance to hit is. Now when I know I only have 40% chance to hit, I get less mad and go make a priority to train my weapon skills. I do think there is a value to the base release of games being a certain quality, considering Morrowind became relevant recently because of how mid Starfield was, which was on purpose as they expected people to mod the game for them. On the flip side is New Vegas, my favorite game of all time that I played for over a decade on the Xbox 360, completely vanilla, crashes and all. New Vegas is an incredible game.
Roughly 2010 to 2022. I've gotten to the point to where I can't control myself not to mod it, at least for Stewie tweaks. But yeah, New Vegas' base game is just goated. Morrowind, on the other hand, so much of what I like about Morrowind would fall apart if it wasn't stable. And vanilla Morrowind is not stable. Like super jumping, with the Boots of Blinding Speed, the fact that view distance exists, like, there's a lot that I couldn't go to vanilla Morrowind for.
That can be modded. Starfield is a husk that needs to be modded. Morrowind does have an inherent beauty to it, but fighting the game itself to enjoy Morrowind is necessary if it isn't modded. I think there is an argument to be made Morrowind isn't supposed to be fun, which if you take this opinion, makes the bad parts good parts and adds to the experience of the game as more of an art piece, as how horrible certain aspects are, to highlight how miserable and terrible being the narrator would be. Sort of like Majora's Mask being frustrating and
there we go.
the first time, add to the anxiety and stress of that game. If Morrowind is meant to be stress-inducing and frustrating, the unmodded experience is a true piece of art. However, if it is supposed to be a fun game, the modded experience is just as, if not more, incredible. And I think modding is fair.
I think it's supposed to be a bit of both. When Morrowind isn't fun, it is extremely frustrating. It is like it is like teeth gritting, like pushing your nails into the palm of your hand so hard it bleeds, aggravating when you're not having fun. And I think there's a case to be made that it's that parabolic relationship that makes Morrowind what it is. When you're fighting an enemy that you just can't hit, and like you're getting staggered, and like you don't know what your chance to hit is, there's something just so miserable about it. There are moments I've had playing characters where something bad will happen, and I'll just get so fucking angry and annoyed at Morrowind that I want to stop. But then I try again and I get better results and it feels like okay. But then there are moments where I'm doing something like spell making or levitating or jumping, or looking at like some character and looking at like something I just added that I got from somewhere that makes my character look cooler, that like I got by getting like better skills and stuff in the game, that like it's like epic. But it's like it's very extremes. There's not I guess the boring part is just walking places. Like that's kind of like the mid ground is just walking places.
I've gone back and forth a few times on how I feel about it, but I sort of had an epiphany. Ocarina of Time, one of the biggest games of history, released on like 4 different consoles and remastered on the 3DS, just flat out does not have anywhere near the number of mods that any Bethesda game, new or old, does. The mods are not official, but the accessibility offered in modding is more officially available for this game than other franchises, which I do think makes modding something uniquely powerful to Bethesda games. So is Morrowind worth playing in 2024? Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, the mods aren't the base game, but I feel like it's easier to compare Morrowind to OpenMW than to even Oblivion or Skyrim, right? I don't think that's too radical. Morrowind is more closely related to OpenMW and vice versa than Daggerfall or Oblivion. But at the same time, it's not. Morrowind is not OpenMW, and OpenMW is not Morrowind. Which is why I make the distinction there. I've said it before, I do not think I would like vanilla Morrowind. At all. Not at all, but like, I wouldn't be able to get through it. It's not like New Vegas, where if I had to go back to the Xbox, I could probably do it. Now, granted, I haven't done it in years, but I could probably do it if I had a working Xbox. I don't have an Xbox, but you know what I mean. But yeah.
Oh god, my throat is destroyed. Thank you for 500 subscribers!
We're at 611. We slowed down so much after Morrowind. Actually, like, all 100 of the extra subscribers were Morrowind. I've gotten, like, no subscribers from anything else. That's why I'm gonna be so angry if this, if the recent Morrowind video I did flopped, because, like, this is what you fucking people came for. Thank you is a good screen to leave on. This was a good stream. I might stream tonight. Like, I might enter stream again, but I'm gonna definitely take a break. I'm not sure what the next video is. I kind of want to make a Melee equivalent to my Magic video, but talking about why it's different just requires talking. Like, I can't do it all in text format. Magic is pretty self-explanatory. You know, you make a 100 touch spell, that pretty much solves the game. And from there, it's just about getting the efficacy to, like, actually get off those spells in combat. But, like, Melee is kind of more complicated. Because, like, you need your enchantment, which relies on magic, so it's like, is it still Melee? It is, but... And then you've got to, like, consider things like, well, what about equivalents to magic, like enchantments and potions? And it's like... I guess, but then the fact that you have the weight to carry those things around is because you're a warrior, right? So it ties back to being a warrior. There's also the fact that, like, Corpus gives Melee a much higher ceiling than Magic. I just know to, like, self-impose and not do that. I could do that. I would have to delete all the footage I have of my Magic playthrough to do that, because it's taking up all my disk space. Because I only have 1 terabyte on my PC. And I save my SSD for finished videos. So, I'll have to see how this video does and if I need to edit it. Before I delete those videos and start on a new project. So I have to give it some time either way. Unfortunately. And again, I might stream another game or something. I'm not sure. Either way though. Thank you if you came. I'll thank you when I come.